I gotta get some shit set up here. Perfect. Get the headset on. Alright. Um, okay. Actually, wait, can you hear the audio? Okay, you can. The warm farewells Rumka and Biasha shouted at the back. Now, first 5 minutes were already scuffed. Actually, no, I just can't fucking English. The warm farewells Rumka and Biasha shouted at the back of fleeing Semyon echoed inside my mind.
Горло тебе перережу, слышишь?
Was Rumka serious about his threats? Would he chase his former friend deep into the forest and then what? Kill him? Just like that? No, that can't be right. I hurriedly rubbed my glasses. The glasses. Semyon was clutching them in his fist while trying to escape the barrage of kicks and slaps from his friends. Former friends by now. In just a couple hours, this lost item was lying on the edge of my window. It's hard to imagine that Sioma was suddenly got guilty conscience and returned my glasses in such a strange way. I was shocked, but kept walking toward the classroom. Accompanied by nasty whispers all around me. That photo still stood before my eyes. Semyon had gone missing. Semyon is gone. His fat fingers will never get to my throat. His signet ring won't smash into my chin. He'll never humiliate me again. Wasn't that what I wished for? On the other hand, did I really wish Semyon to become a murky stain on the notice board? He was still someone's son, or a grandson, and went through the same struggles as me. Did I really wish for my unseen companion to dispatch him in such a brutal fashion? I didn't know the answer. Or I was just scared of it. Nonetheless, school still had something nice about it. Paulina, the girl with a violin, was like a mountain spring like well water that you gulp down, pressing your lips against the zinc outer ring of a bucket, and can't ever get enough. What if I make her one of the characters in the story I'll draw? The protagonist will save her from terrifying monsters. As soon as I thought of monsters, a bunch of my classmates slid down the rails, smirking like the xenomorphs from the Alien. I merely felt larvae of fear rise in my stomach. I didn't want to cross paths with Rumka and Biash after what happened yesterday, especially since Semyon suddenly went missing. I entered the classroom and went toward the last row. All of the chatter suddenly died down as I walked there in complete silence. I felt like my classmates pushed and poked me with their stares. They carefully observed my every move. I stared at the desk with a huge pile of library textbooks on top, my fists clenched. It felt like I was the one who disappeared in that snowy forest, and my desk was finally used for something worthwhile. Semyon's empty chair stood in front of me, the chair that once belonged to Vova gathered dust somewhere in another classroom. An old cheap slide projector. I called this model a tank because it looked like one. There was a time when I had a lot of cool fairy tales that we used to watch with Dad in complete darkness. I remember Little Raccoon and the One Who Sits in the Pond, Kipling's Mowgli, and many others. I was immediately swept away by the memory of the projector's hum, of its hot casing, of its bright rays hitting the wall, turning into a screen. It's a pity that the school slides were mostly about minerals and PSAs. I looked at the portraits of classical writers. My eyes stopped on Esenin's photo. I'm butchering these Russian names. Last year, I was tasked with learning any poem, and Dad suggested I learn about the dog Jim written by Esenin. I don't remember all the stanzas by now, but the last one was somehow deeply ingrained in my memory. I'm sure she'll come here in my absence. Please catch her eye, go kiss her hand for me. For all my real or fancied errors, asking forgiveness of her in humility. How noble. Every boy my age knew I had something like this in his arsenal. Powder firecrackers that blow up with a very loud sound. Especially inside an archway, it is said that they're produced in China and that a single one of them can blow your fingers off if you light it and clutch it in your hand. Especially the black Corsair type. They won't be enough to blow up plastic soldiers, but when it comes to stuff made of plaster, they should work. What's that, Yep. After a moment of hesitation, I sat down at Bobrin's desk. The place where I was supposed to be assigned by Lilia Pavlovna at first. The chatter resumed after someone just unpaused the movie.
Бабушка Бабурина такой кипиш устроила, когда он домой не явился. Сначала в школу прибежала, потом ментов вызвала. Да-да-да.
Kaya snuck a cunning glance at me, then leaned in to her neighbor and whispered something. Girls from the second row also leaned in. She shared something with them too, whispers, nods. I kept catching her stare on myself. Her neighbor stared too. The whole class was watching me. It was like they felt the need to watch me because they were searching for traces of blood on my fingers. I wanted to defend myself and shout, "Guys, listen, I'm innocent." Rumko gave me a heavy, worried look. He was probably as stunned as Semyon's disappearance as everyone else. But then he directed his stare straight at my face. It felt like he was about to point his finger at me and shout at the top of his lungs, "Hey, everyone, look, Bobrin snatched his glasses yesterday, and now he has them back. Murderer." But he remained silent as if there was nothing special at all about my glasses. I may be going mad, but I think Rumka knows something. He knows something, but he won't tell me what. But it was also possible he didn't care at all, just like everyone else. Then Rumka shifted his eyebrows in suspicion and stared at Kaya as if informing her that he didn't believe a word she said. I wanted to believe that Rumka would take my side. And Biasha, who sat sprawled in his chair with his chin pressed against the table, too. But they were silent. A terrifying thought flashed in my mind. Those two could easily betray me and push me off the cliff. Just like they did with Semyon. As if looking for protection, I clutched the ruler until my hand hurt.
Не надо быть Коломбо, чтобы догадаться. Кто на Бабурина зуб имел? Кто его вчера ударил? Поиздевался, а после...
The metal ruler fell out of my weak fingers. It hit the floor with a jingle, and that made other kids shudder. Kaya bit her tongue and squirmed nervously. Chairs scraped against the floor. My classmates moved away from me, closer to the exit, towards the teacher's desk. I was not the only one to catch wind of that change. Rumka and Biasha looked around and winced in contempt. It's good that they were clearly on my side.
Да прикуси ты! Бабурин, небось, с бабкой посрался и дымился. Скоро найдется.
Найдется, ага. Во враге, со вспоротым брюхом.
Are Russian children so gore-ridden? I gulped. I imagined Sioma on a snowy blanket with I imagined Sioma on a snowy blanket, his face, white like a fish belly, split down the middle by the crevice of his mouth, snowflakes falling on his glassy eyes and filling up his throat. See? I could almost hear his condescending tone. It's all your fault. Of course, Semyon did me a favor by disappearing. Thanks to him, my classmates now stared at me in awe. But that was only one side of the coin. What if I'll have to repay that favor soon? The door creaked. Polina entered the classroom. I straightened up in a hurry so she wouldn't see me looking like a scared critter. Polina found me with her eyes, gave me a short nod, and went to her seat. Kaya rushed to her neighbors again like a lab rat that saw a treat. I started whispering, switching her gaze between me and Polina. Messages on pieces of paper started jumping around the classroom. The ringer's trill announced the start of the class.
Так, заканчиваем бардак. Дети, встаньте. Петров, тебя это тоже касается?
Lilia Pavlovna went to her desk, followed by a policeman in a uniform. It was the man that visited us just recently, tall and his stare so sharp you could get cut on it.
Здрасте.
Здравствуйте!
Садитесь. Познакомьтесь, это старший лейтенант Константин Владимирович Тихонов. Он задаст вам несколько вопросов и проведет небольшую лекцию по безопасности.
The class livened up. Talk to a policeman was better than studying. I, on the other hand, was ready to sit through hundreds of hours of refreshing literature just to escape the lieutenant's oppressive stare. His brown eyes felt around the classroom, looking for me. His hair stood on the back of my neck, and an icicle had lodged in my gut.
А правда, что Бабурина маньяк убил?
Екатерина, ну-ка цыц. Вопросы здесь взрослые задают.
Просто нам всем страшно. Может, убийца бродит где-то рядом? Или сидит у нас за спиной?
Her sly stare was directed at me. Tikhonov stepped in between the rows of desks and started walking at an excruciating slow pace, brushing his fingers against the chairs he passed by. Some of the students also broke their necks following his movements. That's how a crowd of commoners would gleefully anticipate a public execution in the Middle Ages. and he just walked, getting closer and closer to me. I gritted my teeth to stop myself from screaming. Calm down, breathe. You didn't kill or kidnap anyone. He already knew the answer to his question, but the policeman still asked in a stern voice.
Петров Антон?
Да.
Встань, Петров.
My muscles turned to stone. I got up, unglued myself from the chair. I felt like I could hear all my joints creak in the process. I only wish that Paulina wouldn't turn around and see the grimace of horror on my face. If only I could be somewhere far away in the forest, digging myself into a snow pile, rolling up into a ball there. The officer stared at me as if he was about to lock a pair of handcuffs on my wrist. I wonder how cold these bracelets are to the touch. Imagine myself getting jailed and put into a juvenile detention center, where tens of Semyons would constantly harass me.
Я ничего не знаю. Я тут ни при чем.
А тебя никто и не обвиняет. Пока что.
Only then I noticed a file that said case number in his hand. It had a gray cover made from rough carton. It flopped onto the desk like a guillotine blade that slid down someone's neck. With a measured motion, Tikhonov opened the file, still studying me with his gaze. I caught a glimpse of documents and photos. They showed prints on the snow. They looked like animal prints.
Ты с Семеном Бабуриным общался?
Я знал его всего один день.
Все знают, Петров его ненавидел.
I turned red. You ugly bitch. I wanted to sink my teeth in Katya's face and chew out her cheek. Instead, I replied with the calmest voice I could muster.
Мы повздорили вчера. Но он первый начал. Я его ударил.
Сильно?
Да нет, так.
I waved my hand indecisively. Tikhonov looked at my face after he was surprised I managed to hit the big kid from the photo. Surprisingly, Lilia Pavlovna came to my rescue.
Бабурин проблемный подросток, с шилом кое-где. Сам ко всем лез.
The officer replied with a meaningful nod and fished out a notebook out of the file.
Это твое?
I averted my gaze. It was a math notebook with my name on it. My classmates devoured me greedily with their eyes. It felt like even the writers on the portraits squinted at me in suspicion.
Мое.
В лесу нашли. Там же тракторист, что снег убирал в последний раз, видел Бабурина.
I started blinking in bewilderment. Romka ransacked my school bag. The notebook probably got lost somewhere in the bushes. The lieutenant knew about the school brawl, but was he aware of the fight in the forest clearing? I had witnesses that could testify to Semyon, and I was walking in different directions after that. I looked towards the boys, hopeful. Romka, who sat behind Tikhonov, put a finger to his lips. When the officer quickly turned around, he pretended to pick his nose. I deciphered his signal. Boys like Romka would probably say something like snitches get stitches in a situation like this. I frantically fixed my glasses. Wait, Semyon took them away yesterday, but now they're...
Так что ты делал вчера в лесу, Антон?
Я в школу через лес хожу. Могла выпасть легко.
Easily, just like me producing this half-truth.
Будь осторожнее.
Before I could realize whether it was a genuine piece of advice or a veiled threat, the teacher said,
Класс. А сейчас лейтенант расскажет о правилах, которые вам необходимо соблюдать.
Так маньяк маньяк все-таки есть.
Пока мы ничего вам сказать не можем.
Rumka swayed in his chair and gave me a thumbs up. Attaboy, good job keeping your trap shut. I nodded, even though I didn't feel a shred of pride from his praise. After all, he was the one who threw my notebooks and textbooks into the snow when he was the one ordering Semyon, despite changing his allegiance later.
Но есть преступник или нет, вы должны четко помнить о собственной безопасности. Вас бережет милиция, вас опекают родители и учителя. Но в первую очередь защищать себя должны вы сами. Итак, кто там что хотел узнать?
A stockade of arms rose from the desk. The kids shouted over each other, swarming the policemen with questions. In an attempt to calm down that chorus, he moved toward the blackboard. The gray file was left lying in front of me. I stared at it, my breathing so ragged that it might have looked like someone who just ran a 100-meter sprint. Beads of sweat rolled down my back. I looked around the classroom. My classmates were Got something in my mouth. My classmates were catching officers' every word. Only Romka was saying something to Biasha. Lilia Pavlovna was staring into the window, fighting back yawns.
Комендантский час, причин пока нет. Слишком мало времени прошло с момента исчезновения вашего одноклассника. Мы все уверены, что он найдется живым и здоровым.
Nobody paid me any mind, so I slowly opened the file. My fingers started sifting through the documents. Ksenia Talaleva, 6 years old, left her home sometime in December, identifying features. Okay. My heart almost jumped out from the ribcage. A round-faced girl no older than Oya smiled at me from the photo. The first victim of a serial killer, the first child to disappear in the forest without a trace. I turned to another page. Vladimir Matyukin, 10 years old. Vova was the second. His mitten, hanging from the branch, his name called out by desperate adults and repeated by the sneering echo. Lilia Pavlovna coughed, trying to calm down the rowdy students. I yanked my hand away and the file closed.
Говорим о диких животных. Как известно, в наших лицах водятся волки, медведи, лисы. Людей они боятся.
As soon as I touched the folder, Tikhonov lashed at me with his eyes. My hand instinctively moved away, as if that stare actually hurt. The officer just kept staring at me without saying a word, making me squirm under the weight of his uncomfortable silence and the sneering looks of my classmates. And then he suddenly continued to speak as if nothing ever happened.
И близко не подходят. Но бывает животные
My fault?
бешеные. Не бегите.
Fuck! Wait, hold on. Alright, can I skip this? I fucked up.
Комендантский час, причин пока нет. Слишком мало времени прошло с момента исчезновения вашего одноклассника. Мы все уверены, что он найдется живым и здоровым. Говорим о диких животных. Как известно, в наших лицах водятся волки,
Damn it, wait, no, stop skipping, stop skipping. Fuck, 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 fuck. Son of a bitch. I'll just do this by hand.
Баб...
Е-
Я...
Ты-
Ну, я... И-
Но...
Fuck, I fuck up again.
Комендантский час, причин пока нет.
Requiem.
Диких животных. Как известно, в наших лесах водятся волки, медведи, лисы. Людей они боятся и близко не подходят. Увидев незнакомца,
They reminded me of snapshots from the strange TV report. When stuff crosses, oh fuck, whoops. The artery, like, actually, wait here, hold on, we can read the backlog. The episode started squeaking with a piece of chalk again, and I, after making sure nobody was watching me, opened the file and got the photos that were hidden at the bottom. They reminded me of snapshots from that strange TV report, only instead of crosses on white backgrounds, there were crooked rowan trees. The artery-like roots, stumps and charred pine, cut down by lightning, and snow, lots of snow. Then, a black building that immediately gave me chills, yet it wasn't a crypt. It was a garage. A box made from steel standing amidst the thicket, judging by the trees all around it. Those black gates were almost sucking me in. I already encountered this metal container that travels around the local area. Just yesterday, in fact. First, Romka told me about it. He said that the black garage was the culprit behind children going missing, as if it was a living being. And then I met with this abyss colored building face to face in the middle of the thick forest. The fox girl told me that Vova was hiding there. My fingers trembled and the photo glided through the air back into the file. Thank God it landed upside down. That steel box was just too unsettling to look at. There was also a plastic bag at the bottom of the file, the type used to store evidence. I opened it, and inside it was a severed finger. I blinked and the mirage dissolved. I couldn't see a cut-off body part, there was only a signet ring inside. Stunned by that fleeting hallucination, it almost felt like I was transported back to the forest and heard Semyon's words.
Ща, парашник, я тебе этой печаткой так заряжу.
The ring was giving off a faint glow on top of my palm. I panicked and squeezed the evidence in my fist, trying to assure myself it was real. I clanged my teeth from surprise, brushed myself back in my chair, blinking in bewilderment. The officer silently gathered the document and gave me a stern look.
Больно ты любопытный, Петров.
I tried my best to squeeze out an apology and return the ring, but I only managed to hold out a clenched fist with the ring inside and started rumbling like my dad's car engine when it started cold.
Как говорится, меньше знаешь, крепче спишь.
Вот,
He went toward the blackboard without looking back while I was still clenching the stolen piece of evidence, thinking about Semyon, a boy that was already most likely dead.
И еще раз. Если вы заметите в поселке кого-то подозрительного, неважно, возле школы или на лесной тропинке, сразу сообщайте в милицию. Телефон-то знаете? Спасибо, ребята. Спасибо, Лилия Павловна. И это... Одноклассника вашего мы найдем.
Yeah, right. I thought it flashed through my mind. Dig through enough ditches and maybe you'll be able to piece them together. Like Legos. My thoughts turned evil for some reason and I couldn't control them. I tried to switch to the lieutenant's speech about suspicious individuals. What if I saw the killer before? What if I was a hair's breadth away from them? You misspelled breath. There's no D in his breadth. Sorry. Suspicious people. How suspicious was the fox girl that wandered into the darkness? The weirdo that always appears out of nowhere and then dissolves into thin air with her riddles and rhymes. Could she really harm the hulking Semyon? Should I tell the officer about her? What if lives of other kids depend on this? Of the cute Kiesia and Vova too. What if I get mugged for speaking out? What if they start whispering behind my back? Or what's even worse, think that I'm insane? Romka gave me a stern look over the shoulder. I doubt someone like him would approve of cooperating with the police. Katya's ready to dangle nervously behind the delinquent sitting in front of him. My hand was glued to the desk.
До свидания, лейтенант.
Tikhonov was saying goodbye to Lilia Pavlovna. He was about to leave. It'll be too late soon. If I'm gonna save, I should have been doing this with every choice. I'm an idiot. I unglued my palm from the tabletop. I need to warn him at the very least, for Oyo's sake, to assure her safety in the house near the squeaky pines. I raised my hand, heavy as a dumbbell.
Простите.
Almost 24 heads turned my way. My teacher, the officer, Polina. Katya shoved an elbow into her friend's side. Sleepy Biasha stretched out his neck. Romka frowned inquiringly.
Я слушаю.
I felt like I was being studied under a microscope.
Вчера утром по дороге в школу я видел незнакомого человека.
My classmates started whispering. Tikhonov frowned, a deep wrinkle adorning the space between his eyebrows.
Да откуда ему знать, чужак это или кто-то из местных? Он же в поселке без году неделя.
The other kids smirked. Katya flashed an evil smile.
Спокойствие. Антон, а сможешь детальнее описать?
Then it dawned on me. I can do more than describe them, what I can do.
Я нарисовать могу. Я рисую немного.
After spitting out this confession, I expected everybody to laugh, but that didn't happen. Even Katya stayed silent. Polina tilted her head and studied me with an intrigued look on her face. I was pleased by this wave of attention. It made me feel bolder, so I asked.
Нарисовать?
Tikhonov slowly nodded.
Лиль Павловна, мы тут проведем следственный эксперимент, а?
Пожалуйста, пожалуйста.
I took out a pen, flattened out a sheet of paper. My classmates stared at me in anticipation. Polina smiled, and it was the best reward I could get for my boldness.
Ну что, Ван Гог, рисуй.
I'm curious. Can we get... That kind of looks like him. Hold on, I'm gonna save. That's...
Вот, пожалуйста.
I hand the drawing to the officer.
И кто это, по-твоему? Лилия Павловна, не узнаете? Случаем не ваш трудовик?
My homeroom teacher squinted, trying to have a close look at my drawing.
Какая отвратительная рожа.
Да это батя Петрова!
Romka stomped Biasha's thunderous laughter with such a heavy slap across the back of the head that it made him bite his tongue. I felt like windows shuddered from all the surrounding laughter.
А ну, цыц!
Lilia Pavlovna hissed at the class, and the commotion died down, but I was already burning at the stake of shame. Did I do it right?
Все ясно. Что тут еще скажешь?
Tikhonov folded my drawing and threw it into the folder. I think I did it right. I don't think I ever did that before. I didn't think I could. Was that him?
Ну, занимайтесь.
He left. The bell rang.
Придурочный.
Fuck off. I didn't move, just kept staring into space. Lilia Pavlovna passed by without looking my way. Polina left after her. Ooh, actually, wait, I got some rice I can eat. Hold on. Fuck, I forgot I put a hot sauce in there. My classmates went silent at the same time as someone muted the sound on the TV. They followed me with their eyes the whole time. I was passing between the rows. Judgmental looks, I felt like I was in the scopes of many sniper rifles. I squeezed through the barricade made of desks, looking for Polina. But instead, I stumbled into my new buddies. Romka and Biasha were waiting for me at the notice board.
Я в тебе не ошибся, Тошек. Пацан, не спалил, как мы чуть было свинью не забили.
Это повело бы милицию по ложному следу. Наверное. А вы точно не имеете отношения к исчезновению Семёна?
Мы-то нет, а вот ты. Помнишь, как срулил от нас в потемках?
Ага, я так и говорю. Очкарик в дверь! Тебя жирного нагонит и кокнет на!
Базаришь.
I did in fact not kill him.
Однако мы тебе верим. А ты нам?
Romka's stern look made me uncomfortable, so I nodded.
Вот ты славно.
Romka lowered his voice and looked around the corridor in suspicion. The other kids were stealing glances at us, whispering.
Что ж, Сёма пропал, это правда.
Good riddance, in my opinion.
Как и факт, что не просто пропал, а скорее всего уже сдох.
Well, that's fucking nice, guys. Come on, have some hope. Biasha shuddered.
А ты почем знаешь?
Так мы за это уже терли. Здесь такие случаи не впервой. Думаешь, Сенечка, Вова этот и Сёма в Нарнию попали?
See ya, Biasha.
Посидят в лесу с карамелькой за щекой и назад пришлепают. Ясно же, кто их к себе прибрал.
Неужели черный? Маничела! Бля, буду пацаны! Это все местная Чикатило.
curious. Andrew, a Soviet serial killer and cannibal, he sexually assaulted and killed at least 43 people, mostly women and children. He was later deemed legally sane and sentenced to death by a firing squad. Yeah, you know what? I support a firing squad. Not gonna lie. I feel like we'd free up so much space in prison if we just did that shit. But what do I know?
Вычислить бы еще, кто он такой.
It's that dude in the tracksuit.
Ну, если этот убийца Бабурина завалил, он и по нашу душу явится, отвечаю.
Слушайте, пока Тихонов лекцию читал, я в его папку тайком заглянул.
Biasha whistled.
Там лежало кое-что. Печатка. Семина печатка. И я ее того прихватил. Да ладно! А ну, Дакет!
I looked around like a thief, then carefully took out the stolen ring.
Так я и думал мне тело! На части нас разрезат!
Roma wasn't impressed by the information, he just nodded, looking grim.
А еще там фотография была с гаражом черным.
Biasha looked like he was punched in the gut. He staggered and hid his face in his hands.
Бляха.
Romka rolled his eyes and swore.
Опять 25. Ну, спокойно, братан, спокойно.
Бяша, ты же встречал черный гараж раньше, так? Рома говорил, ты даже заглянул в него.
The Buriat kid started shaking all over as if he was thrown outside naked in the middle of winter. And every new question was like a bucket of cold water on top of that. Actually, wait, hold on. I'm curious about something. You know what? I don't care.
Что ты там видел?
Romka shielded his friend with his chest, clearly upset by my interrogation.
Забудь. Ничего он тебе толком не скажет. Бяши каждый раз мозг на бекрень сворачивает, только коснись этой темы. Коль ты теперь с нами, я тебе в первый, в последний раз рассказываю.
Romka leaned in like we were some sort of co-conspirators. Winston discussed as if reluctant to relieve the memory, and spoke in a whisper.
Осенью мы с пацанами от нефиг делать черной магией баловались. Хотели, как обычно, призвать пиковую даму там, или над духом Пушкина постебаться. То да сё. А вышло, брат, совсем не весело. Один старый чудило рассказал, что мы можем призвать настоящего духа, если нарушим один строжайший запрет предков. Чёрт. А я ведь сразу просек, что он ёбнутый. Всего-то надо было пойти за гаражи глубокой ночью и постучать в самый-самый черный, мать его. Вот мы по приколу и клюнули.
Hold on, wait. Backlog. Biasha wrapped his hand around his head and let out a lengthy bleat.
А когда Бяша тест на пацана проходил, то должен был в этот гараж постучать, но эта хитрая морда просто туда заглянул. И правильно сделал. Он от ужаса тогда так заорал, что слезы брызнули. Отвечаю, я такой истерики отродясь не видел. Явно там необещанная райская куща была. С тех пор черный гараж по нашим закоулкам шарится и нормальных пацанов жрет.
Что же делать?
Вместе держаться, вот что. Втроем мы, как Вольтрон.
Это... В Вольтроне их 5 было, на.
Ну, считай, мы покалеченный Вольтрон.
He looked at me with an adult gaze and nodded. His eyes were full of worry and sadness.
Ладно, Раз Сёмы больше нет, айда с нами. Дело одно есть. Постоишь для вида, покараулишь. Тебя, кажется, уже боятся все.
Cause that's what I want. Or that's what he wants. Scared shitless of me. Well, I couldn't wrap all that around my head. Either attitude softened me up and I agreed on the spot. I followed Romka and Biasha through the twilight corridors of our school, savoring my newfound brazenness. Whoops. We walked pompously like heroes of some criminal drama, as if the three of us had access to some knowledge hidden from everyone else. I'm not sure if I would have gone with them if they told me what the goal of our campaign was. We hid in the darkness near the school gym. My companions started rubbing their knuckles, watching boys leave the dressing room. Finally, Biasha pointed out someone inside the crowd.
Вон этот лох!
Romka smiled dangerously and proclaimed in a low voice,
Стой на стрёме, и если кто из училок объявится, дай знать.
Гляди в четыреглазно!
Давай, давай!
I stood at the corner,
нам
filled with
должен.
conflicting feelings and thoughts. In a cul-de-sac behind me, Rumka
чё,
was
не
having a
понял?
back and forth with some fifth grader.
Может, тебя на счетчик
The boy was
поставить, а? У
protesting on the
шлепок
verge of
майонезных.
tears, but Rumka stood his ground, spewing countless obscenities at him, Biasha occasionally adding a couple of words of his own. Would Dad praise me for involving myself like this?
Всё, вали давай!
Drink of water. My new friends came out at the cul-de-sac. A light bulb illuminated the camera in Rumka's hand.
Ого, полароид. Он твой?
Rumka shook the black electronic marvel with retractable flash, disinterested.
Теперь мой. Мне тут один должник велик торчал за свой гнилой базар. Но, говорит, нет у него велосипеда. Вот и расплатился фотиком. А мне он, честно говоря, и в хер не впился.
Eat some of my rice. Oh shit. What's up, guys? I felt bad for that boy, but all the negative thoughts disappeared when I looked at the treasured camera. I could clearly imagine how happy Oya would be with this Polaroid. I imagined myself taking pictures of my sister, dad, and mom. The face of my family would gradually appear on the hard paper as if emerging from the dissolving mist. I'd take pictures of Polina too. That way I'd be able to get her photo for myself. I am curious about something. I keep it in my desk, under lock and key. Whoops. I'm all tabbed into the game.
Раз он тебе не нужен, можешь мне его отдать?
Roma measured me with the shower glare, turning into the Rumka I'd met yesterday. The callous leader of a carnivorous pack.
Ты извини, братан, но я вещами просто так не разбрасываюсь. Могу в ломбард загнать, ну или разыграть во что-нибудь.
For some reason, as soon as you mentioned a game, I remembered Elisa. I looked at the Polaroid.
Ну давай я с тобой на него сыграю. Только во что?
Biasha snickered into his fist.
Чаром! Снимем с нас вантовки последние штаны.
Я тебе чё, пидор с пацанов штаны снимать?
Rumka stared at me from above.
На что играть собрался? У тебя хоть бабки есть?
No, I am broke.
Во-во! Свети карманы, Тофик!
I slowly turned the pockets of my pants inside out, and waited in hope of salvaging at least some change from my lunch money. Something rustled in my pocket. I fished out the Mercedes-Benz insert I got thanks to Elisa. I guess I shoved it there without thinking when it flew out of my school bag with all the notebooks.
А на вкладыши играете?
Biasha's eyes almost popped out of the sockets as soon as I brought the car's picture closer, but Rumka didn't move a muscle.
Хочешь, чтобы я целый фотик за какой-то там фантик отдал?
Это за...
Да жвачки это и рубль цена, а в полароиде кассета еще целая.
Да это да...
Ой, у меня таких вкладышей жопой жуй, на кой мне еще?
Мерседес-Бенц, на! Его-то нам и не хватало, Робert!
Rumka's gonna beat his ass. Yep, Rumka spit on the ground and slapped Biasha over the back of the head.
Ну ты и трепло, братка. Теперь он за него цену до небес взвинтит.
Just like I suspected, this automobile was a valuable addition to every Turbo Gum collector.
Ага, значит, появился интерес? Так во что будем играть?
В подкидного!
В ножички?
I don't know what either of those things are. In the building on high, a greasy deck of most likely marked cards appeared in Biasha's hand, and Rumka masterfully swung his butterfly knife like in front of my nose. I had no desire to play by their rules.
А давайте в камень-ножницы.
О, а ты у нас любишь рисковать. Ха. Ну что, мой полароид против твоего Мерса?
По рукам.
Alright, I'm saving. Hold on. Because this is all luck based. Fuck you, paper. He played paper, which means he's gonna play scissors. Fuck!
Красава, Ромка! Под орех тут!
As sad as I was to be left with nothing in the end, I held out the insert to the boys. Dad always said that a card debt is sacred, and it still stood true here, even without the cards. Rumka crossed his hands on his chest while smirking and eyeing the prize, and then spoke after looking up at me.
Чё, Тошик, приуныл? Ладно, давай как другу дам шанс отыграться.
Best 2 out of 3, let's go.
Играем, скажем, до 3 побед.
Ну ты, Рома, ты щедрый тип!
My friends let out another hyena-like laugh, but then Rumka lifted his fist with a serious look in his eyes. He was raring to go on. Fucking rock. Paper. Bitch. Fuck no. I don't lose just like that. Rock.
Есть!
I raised my fist toward the ceiling in triumph.
Стопэ, стопэ. У нас принято до 3 побед играть.
А раньше сказать.
Ты думал, все так просто будет, на?
Не пойму я, чё ты хмуришься так? Один раз уже выиграл, преимущество на твоей стороне. Давай-ка продолжим. 1, 2, 3!
Ah, fuck. I hate this so goddamn much. Fucking paper. Bitch. Rock. Bastard. Fuck. Scissors. Oh. He's going to assume I play rock because he plays scissors, so I'm gonna play paper. Ha bitch! I looked at my opponent with suspicion.
Ну, я выиграл. Или теперь мне нужно еще и Бяшу обыграть?
Rumka mumbled something under his breath. He probably refused to play by the rules, and I'll be left with nothing.
Эй, Ромыч, все по чесноку-на!
Rumka reluctantly gave up.
Везучий ты, сука. Держи. Только писюн свой не фоткай.
I weighed the Polaroid on my palms and realized I was smirking like a true winner. It's been 7 days since the lieutenant visited our class. At first glance, everything was still the same. The forest still held out its gnarly claws toward the village, and the wind whipped up white flags and weeds from powdery snow every night. When my parents argued in the other room, I would turn up the TV's volume to silence their muffled voices and sit close to Alia. Oh. Volvo's and Semyon's photos were still 2 black spots on the notice board, and round-faced Senya hadn't returned home too. But something did. I could see how different the looks of my classmates were. They made my pockets bulge with gifted apples. Their animosity was gone. School wasn't scary anymore. But most importantly, a shadow slid across my desk, leaving behind a mysterious note. I glanced into the space between rows, but the messenger was already nowhere to be found. Who sent me this note? What could this carefully ripped out and neatly folded piece of paper be hiding from me? More threats and humiliation? Or... I took the piece of paper and carefully inhaled the wafting aroma. Blackberry. Inside was a message in beautiful handwriting. I'll be waiting at the dead end near the dressing room. Come alone. Drunk on that sun call, I immediately started walking, looking over my shoulder from time to time, making sure nobody is following me. I didn't even notice how I almost broke into a run and jumped around the corner. As soon as I did that, I ran into somebody inside the dark nook.
Ой!
Like a magic bird, a green notebook glided to my feet. Polina puffed her cheeks in exaggerated anger.
Петров! Да ты совсем зрение потерял.
Yes. I fixed my glasses. My nearsightedness wasn't that embarrassing anymore. I bent down and picked up the notebook.
Прости, я так торопился. Ты меня ждала? Что случилось?
Polina studied me with her eyes and clicked her tongue.
А знаешь, на что ты похож, Антоша? На блюзовую импровизацию.
I blinked in bewilderment.
Это как?
Для меня все люди с чем-то ассоциируются.
И для меня. Но не с музыкой же.
Вот как раз с музыкой. Бывают люди гитарные соло, или барабанный бой, или военный марш, как наша Лилия Павловна. А ты такой задумчивый, таинственный, иногда немного печальный. Ты точно блюз.
А почему импровизация?
А это когда слушатель не догадывается, куда свернет мелодия, какой темп возьмет.
Of course, some of the things Polina said went completely over my head. But I couldn't stop looking at her smile. Light like a breeze in May in her eyes, deep and blue.
Чтобы распознать в тебе музыку, нужен опыт и вкус. Это не какая-то там эстрада.
Я, наверное, вообще не знаю, что такое этот блюз.
Polina gasped and frowned, which made her look even more beautiful.
Не произноси при мне такие слова. Я тебе обязательно дам кассету. Раньше мне дедушка из города столько музыки привозил. И джаз, и свинг, и классику. Это он подметил, что у меня склад ума, как у музыканта. Я еще совсем маленькой пыталась на бумаге записать звуки природы. Пение дождя, леса.
Эх, мне бы твои уши.
А мне бы твои глаза!
I tensed up, worried that she was making fun of me, but Polina shook her head.
Да-да, я серьезно. У тебя глаза художника. Смотришь на вещи и фиксируешь их. Я так не умею.
Kaya walked past us with her trademark frosty glare. We dove into the shadows, trying to escape it.
Теперь понимаешь, почему мы тут прячемся? Вот из-за таких, как она.
А Катька какая мелодия.
Polina flashed me a sly smile.
Скрип несмазанных дверных петель. Знаешь, такой мерзкий дискант.
I giggled, covering my mouth. Kaya didn't hear her whisper, but she suddenly glanced over her shoulder, clearly annoyed. A moment later, she sighed and went her way. I remembered about the notebook. I was still clutching my hand. I turned it in my hands. Instead of a subject name, the front side had the name of the owner and 2 words, friends only.
Любопытной Варваре кое-что оторвали.
Прости, это анкета?
Заполнял когда-нибудь?
I lied that I had. In reality, girl classmates from my previous school had never asked me to fill out their questionnaires. It was quite upsetting. I mean, it was a girl hobby. You just answer a set of standard questions about your favorite actors and colors, but entrusting someone with such a notebook was the sign of friendship. Maybe of something even more, something I only had a vague idea about.
Хочешь, заполни мою?
My heartbeat quickened.
Хочу, спасибо.
Polina giggled.
А хотя, там же столько секретов. Наверное, лучше тебе не знать, о чем мы, девочки, думаем.
She reached for the notebook, playing with me. I tossed my finding into my free hand. Polina tried to intercept my move. Her hair briefly touched my face, tickling my nose with its silky locks. I sensed an aroma that immediately filled the whole world, fragrant, alluring, lively. If only I could picture it, steal it for myself. I felt dizzy, but I gathered myself and spoke in a voice reminiscent of Lieutenant Tikhonov.
Ваша анкета является важнейшей уликой, и я вынужден временно изъять ее для изучения.
Polina covered her mouth that rounded in fake horror.
И что мне грозит за сокрытие улик?
Следствие покажет.
Сдаюсь, товарищ милиционер. Только обещайте ничего не читать. Здесь содержатся секретные сведения.
Боюсь, что мне все-таки придется выяснить, не влюблен ли кто в гражданина Петрова.
Polina burst out laughing and pressed herself against my chest, showering me with the aroma of her hair and her milky skin that looked almost transparent, tiny threads of veins running under it. Her whisper was hot, like a piece of butter sizzling on a pan.
Тогда поклянитесь, что не станете разглашать информацию.
Честная милицейская.
I hated her.
А теперь, Антоша, самое время поторопиться.
Pain. I took out the notebook during class, with utmost care as if it was some sort of fragile treasure. Skimmed through it, reading into other people's preferences. I was quite surprised to discover Rumka's jerky handwriting inside. DuckTales. His letters bulged out of the cells as if embarrassed by their shapelessness. Fearsome Rumka found time for something so silly. I chuckled into my fist after I found out that Rumka's favorite cartoon isn't even Darkwing Duck, but DuckTales. Somewhere in the distance, a teacher was reciting pieces of Andrew Snapper. I paid them no mind. Polina's page was decorated with flower drawings and clippings from the Cool Girl magazine. Her favorite music is Schubert. Her best friend is her grandpa. Her hobby is not violin like I expected, but something more mysterious, listening. Can such a mundane process really be someone's hobby? I looked at Polina over the heads of other students. She was focused on taking notes. I flipped the pages until I found a blank one and armed myself with a pen. Anton Petrov, 6B. I took a long time to decide on my favorite musician until the trendy pop band Carman came to mind, with the cool dancers in their music videos. Favorite holiday? This one's easy. New Year's. My hobby is drawing. My dream? Going to Disneyland, I guess. My hero? My hand moved on its own, writing, death. I stopped on those two lists. What if those who read this after me find my answer laughable and stupid? After thinking for a bit, I decided that not everything should be disclosed on paper. That's how Da turned into Spy-Dar, man. The spelling was wrong, but who cares? Your biggest fear, huh? Immediately wrote losing a person who's dear to me. Your phone number. No secret here. Your favorite cartoon. Transformers. Your best friend. I hesitated, gnawing at the pen's cap. I remembered Elisa, gliding behind the trees, laughing enthusiastically from the shadows. I hadn't even seen her in a week, and it even made me worried. After all, she was the one who stopped the colossus of a monster that wanders the forest in the night from tearing me to bits. I mentioned a masked girl to Rumka and Biash before, but they just gave me weird looks. I wonder what she's up to right now. Your best friend, I read the question out loud. It was easy, but at the same time very important. My answer consisted of 3 letters, and I filled them in the cells with care. You. You, I repeated when running out of school. Refreshing frosty air made my cheeks turn beet red. It was bright outside, and the sun looked like a whole egg yolk. The road looked as if it was silvered. The snow sparkled under the sunlight. I smiled, squinting from the blinding whiteness. There was also something magical in my chest that beckoned me, because friendship can grow into something bigger.
Ты улыбишься.
Oops. I wonder if y'all heard that. Yeah, probably not. I swallowed my smile and turned red.
Да так, анекдот вспомнил.
Biashi was shuffling his feet in the middle of the yard, his boots restless on the ice.
Ну, делись тогда на.
I rummaged through my memory and blurted out a random joke I heard today in the cafeteria.
Кощей вышел на крыльцо почесать себе сундук, зайца, утку и яйцо.
Okay.
Ясно, Петросян.
Soviet and Russian stand-up comic, quickly known as the King of Humorous remakes and dad jokes. Piss off.
Ну идем на.
He walked towards the school corner without waiting for me. I hesitantly tagged along.
А куда? Идем на. Мы теперь в одной связке и действуем заодно. Помощь твоя нужна в кое-каком дельце.
I felt chills run all over my body. I didn't like the sound of that. Small business. Those words, accompanied by spitting, normally hid very dark deeds underneath them. Stranger that used to call our apartment used to say, "Get your old man, we have small business to discuss." Biasha turned around. He looked like an astronaut in his tight hood. If I were to imagine him as a sound, he'd be a deafening whistle, a signal given by someone who stands watch. My knees started shaking as soon as I thought that I was about to be dragged into something shady. Images flashed before my eyes. Tikhonov's strict gaze as he shuts the prison cell door on me. My father hitting the bars in anger. Mom and Oya crying nearby. To my demise, there was nobody in the backyard, apart from the grim-faced Romka. He stood there, his feet wide apart, and his right hand hidden behind his back. He must be holding a knife, the steel butterfly of death that flies toward a person's heartbeat. Ow, fuck. Hit my head on my mic. Romka's dry lips were tightly pursed. He kept shooting glances at me as he looked around. What's going on? It was as if Romka read and announced my thoughts.
Что происходит?
Ничего, проветриваемся на.
Biasha's voice sounded nasty, snarky.
Проветривайся в другом месте!
А мне и здесь нормально, да, куколка?
Baby, is he talking to me? I was so bewildered I wasn't able to squeeze out a single sound in reply. I just watched the bizarre scene played out in front of me by my new problematic friends.
Видишь? Ты ее напугал!
А тебе какая забота, говнюк? Вали пока цел на!
I was trying to digest what I just heard. Did Biasha really just call Romka a shithead? Is he out of his mind?
Пацаны,
Biasha ignored my weak protest and stepped toward Roma, swung at him in a weird, comical manner. Romka blocked the punch with his free hand, keeping his right hand behind his back. Even actors in Indian films that my mom loves fight more convincingly. Biasha started weeping even though I hadn't seen Romka hitting him.
Ай-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй-яй, больно как! У меня сотрясение мозга!
Romka kicked him in the knee and Biasha fell to the ground, sighing and moaning. And I stared at the approaching Romka without blinking. His elbow was twitching and his hand crawled from behind his back. I grew roots into the asphalt. A blade will shine in front of me. Here it comes. Romka yanked his hand from behind his back. My teeth chattered from fear. A bouquet of snowdrops that appeared out of nowhere in this freezing weather stayed in front of my face. What's this? Flowers?
Позволь проводить тебя! А то сама знаешь...
Ну а Тёна, бедным маньякам уже и посасывать нельзя!
Эх, хреновый из тебя маньяк, Бяшка! Даже Тоха не повелся. А она нас в 2 счета раскусит.
Words finally returned to me.
Она? Кто она? Что тут творится?
Bewilderment. Romka snorted, blowing snowflakes off the flowers.
Да, маленькая репетиция, братан. Хотели на твою реакцию посмотреть.
Biasha stood up and brushed himself off.
Да Ромыч в тёлку одну втюрился. Вон откуда-то цветы нарыл на.
пасть заткни! Я так, планирую подкатить слегка. Разыграть представление, а то она неприступная, мать ее за ногу. Типа гуляет девочка себе, а к ней докапывается такое вот говно.
Biasha grumbled, upset.
Сам ты говно!
You really are, though.
Ну и я такой ее раз и спасаю. Но чё-то Бяш совсем бездарный актер. Давай-ка ты маньяком будешь.
Я?
Ну а чё? Как по телеку показывали, маньяки вообще всегда тихие, скромные люди.
Thanks, I guess.
Вот прям как ты. А благодаря Катькиным сплетням все в школе думают, что именно ты Бабурину кокнул. Давай, соглашайся, Тох.
I felt relieved. Nothing grim, just a scene for a girl.
А что делать-то надо?
Ты же видел бешеное кривление? Тип, идешь ко мне, борзый такой, можешь разок в печень заехать, а я тебя тип херак и в сугроб.
Ну, давайте попробуем.
Roma livened up.
Отлично. Бяша, меняешь пол. Ты теперь тёлочка. Гуляй.
Biasha started dragging his feet along the schoolyard, grimacing.
Я тёлочка, красивая тёлочка, я гуляю, ла-ла-ла.
Тоха, действуй.
I went towards Rumka, fighting an urge to smile. He held his hand again and put in a stern expression, a 5-star actor.
Она моя!
Рискни.
And I tried. I threw a punch in the direction of my friend. My knuckles barely grazed the coat, and Rumka suddenly fell. Not from my laughable poke, of course, but because he slipped on ice. He plopped on his back with his full weight, without a chance to get his hand out of the way. Petals from the squash flowers were left on the snow. I rushed to help.
Ой, бля! Да погоди ты, не дергай!
Не сломал?
Roma was carefully working his wrist.
Да не, ушиб вроде.
Лед приложить нужно.
Тебя, мудака, приложить нужно. Об стенку башкой.
Rumka was already laughing as he got up and gathered the flowers.
Да, если я так при подруге навернусь, можно будет про нее забыть.
Давай еще раз отрепетируем.
Rumka shook his head.
Вечером, как рука пройдет. Не хочу опозориться перед первой скрипкой школы.
Договор...
I stumbled mid-word. A switch flipped in my head. It all made sense now. I remembered Rumka constantly sneaking glances at Polena. I remembered his scrawly handwriting in the questionnaire. Why didn't I study it more in depth? I feel like somebody hit me over the head with a giant hammer, making me sink into the ground. Polena, she was the main character of this play, directed by Rumka. And I landed the role of the third wheel. I mumbled hesitantly.
Договорились.
Вот это я понимаю, команда Вольтрона! Один за всех!
И все на одного!
Захлопни! Если вдруг тебе понадобится помощь, Антоха, можешь рассчитывать на меня. А теперь бывай. Вечером мы к тебе заглянем.
The aftertaste of horrible water I drank down my meds with lingered in my mouth. Schizo meds, let's go! Oh great, my tech support messaged me. My thoughts were focused on Paulina. But the play where I was assigned to the role of a villain was also on my mind. I need my charger. Shit. Fuck, it's all the way over there. Hey Zoro, hand me my charger. Ah, fuck. But the play where I was assigned the role of a villain was also on my mind. I think I said that right. I wandered around the house feeling intoxicated and nodded to everything my sister said without trying to discern her words. Oya was talking non-stop, at times lifting her arms up and laughing, only to then suddenly go quiet and give me Mom's signature gnarly look. I was yanked out of the prison of my own mind where seething thoughts pecked at my brain like herpes, stopping me from coming back to reality. Oya stared at me. Or no, I stared back. Oya looked like a mini version of our mom right now. Well, to be precise, she looked like the person Mom turned into when we moved here, with her intimidating posture and her eyebrows directed towards the ceiling.
Ты меня не слушал, так?
No, I wasn't. She tried spitting out those words at me, copying facial expressions of the person she spent almost all of her free time with. For a moment, I felt like the light Oya excluded all these years waned and wavered in the wind of prolonged changes. Very soon, my beautiful princess will turn into the dragon that was once guarding her prison tower. That thought was much scarier to me than any other horror sneaking up to me from the future.
Оля, прости. Ты же не сердишься, правда? Я просто задумался.
I looked around the room, my gaze jumping from one object to another like a hungry beast, trying to find anything that could distract Oya.
А давай в приставку поиграем.
Oya pouted, but there was a spark of interest in her small emerald eyes. The Snow Queen's eyes shard inside them started thawing.
А как же второй джойстик? Не работает же. А папе починить некогда.
Можем из пистолета пострелять.
Checking snap real quick.
В ковбоев или уток, хочешь?
Ты лучше меня играешь.
Да ладно тебе. Поди целый день тренировалась, пока меня дома не было.
Oya burst out laughing. Her heart was warm once again.
А как ты догадался? Я сейчас знаешь, какая меткая. Считай, уже проиграл.
Не на того напала. Включай скорее.
I hid Simeon's signet ring in my desk drawer. I was still unsure whether I did the right thing by stealing a crucial piece of evidence from the police. Then I relocated to my sister's room. Little Oya jumped toward the TV set and, after flicking the power switch, started blindly feeling around the back of the futon, trying to plug the console's cable into the antenna input. Bits of TV shows started flashing on the CRT screen when I armed myself with a remote to look for the channel with the sought-after Dendy signal. Huh?
Что дома интересного происходило?
It was a mundane question for me. I didn't put any actual meaning behind it. But Oya's expression suddenly changed. She lost all the childish nonchalantness she worked so hard to acquire before.
Оль, что-то случилось?
My sister managed to put the cable in its place and started brushing off her dust-covered hand. She was clearly looking for the courage to continue the conversation.
Мама,
Oya went silent, and for a moment I thought I saw tears welling up in her eyes.
у нее опять был этот страшный...
My sister looked at me with wet eyes.
Приступ.
This had happened before, but it was a rare occasion. Now that we'd moved to this godforsaken place, Mom's fits rose in frequency.
Папа принес большую рыбу. Она в газету была завернута и пахла так... Бэ. А мама опять начала злиться. Потом взяла нож.
Oya squirmed, looking fearfully out the window.
Они начали громко ругаться. И...
I froze, imagining my little sister so small and unnoticeable, standing in the kitchen doorway. She wasn't even trying to hide. Our parents just paid her no mind at all.
Потом мама ударила. Вот так.
Oya slightly moved her fist downward, imitating a strike.
Рыбу. Она была живая тоже. Ей было больно. А мама...
It was easy to imagine what happened next. The writhing fish with a blade between its fins squirted some foul-smelling musk into Mom's face. Whenever the death got this close to my mom, be it when a person was hit by a bus in front of us and their blood was smeared all over the windshield, or when Grandma chopped off a chicken's head, Mom would always get into a weird, dreadful fit. Her eyes would roll over, she would fall on her face like a freshly cut tree and start writhing just like that agonizing fish, turning over chairs and blurting out bits of scary sentences.
А папа, он ей помог?
Oya shuddered as if just remembering it pained her.
Да, но вначале он засмеялся тоже. Так страшно, когда увидел, что маме плохо. А потом вдруг заплакал.
Oya's story made me raise an eyebrow. It seemed like the forced oozing madness had not only completely consumed our mom, but also infected our strong and courageous dad. I quickly stepped toward Oya and locked her in a tight embrace. She dug her face into my chest and I could feel my shirt becoming wet.
Зачем они так издеваются друг над другом тоже? Они сумасшедшие.
I stuttered, unable to justify the actions of our parents. Hold on, I gotta check something. I had run out of words, and all I could do was hug Oya even tighter. Oya screamed and hid behind me.
Переключи скорей!
No matter how many times she saw this intro, she would always react the same, just like when she saw that owl. I mean, I also got goosebumps every time this ghastly face appeared on the screen, so I immediately complied with my sister's request. A TV company logo depicting the ceramic head of the Chinese philosopher Guo Zhang with a three-legged toad on top of his head. Finally, the game selection screen showed up from the cartridge that was bundled with the console. Too bad most of the names here were just different levels of the same game. I picked up the gray rectangular controller and started looking around the pixel letters to find the familiar English word for duck. Background music from the menu soothed Olya's mind, and she asked in a calm voice,
А как твои дела в школе?
Да вот, завел пару друзей, наверное.
Ого, целых 2. Везет.
А ты говоришь, лисичку увидела?
Ага, ее зовут Алиса.
I immediately felt uneasy when my new acquaintance was mentioned.
Откуда ты знаешь? Она так сказала.
Да, когда с мамой мусор ходили выбрасывать. А еще говорила, что спасла тебя.
Спасла?
I remembered my fight with the delinquents in the forest and that mysterious whisper from the thicket. I remembered the fleeing Semyon and the horned giant towering above me with his outstretched hand. All that time I could feel Lisa's unseen presence as if she was watching me from behind the crooked trees, a smile stuck to her ginger mask. I shuddered, chasing away this delusion.
А еще она что-нибудь говорила?
Не. Мама так быстро вернулась. Я ее хотела с лисичкой познакомить, а та уже убежала.
Ты ее не боишься?
А почему я должна бояться? Алиса добрая, такая пушистая и красивая. Не то что сова.
I plugged the light gun into the second controller port, listening to my sister's laughs.
Тюря первая!
Alright, I need to log in for this one. God damn it. Ooh, roll forward. There we go.
Считай, это я тебе поддалась.
Okay. Got this.
О, это ты виноват, что я промазала.
Fun around. I'm not getting these ones, I feel like. Fuck. Damn, I suck. Oh, I got this too.
Нищетова! Ты ближе к экрану стоял! Я с тобой так больше не играю!
My mom only managed to get through to me on her third attempt.
Антон, тебя к телефону. Девушка какая-то.
I sobered up in an instant and rushed to the hallway.
Не споткнись, смотри.
I grabbed the phone, pressed it in my chest, looking at my mom. She shrugged and went to the room, gathering the toys thrown around by Oya as she went.
Алло?
У твоей мамы такой молодой голос.
А, ну да. Она сама молодая.
Не мешаю?
Нет, что ты.
If only she knew how costly this conversation could be for me, what risk I just took just answering this call. There were a pen and a shabby notepad lying on the nightstand. I picked them up and started moving the tip of the pen across the paper, producing a chaotic doodles that always ended up turning into hearts.
Я прочла твои ответы. А тебе действительно Кармен нравится?
Мне, если по правде, русский рок больше нравится. Но я почему-то постеснялся это написать.
А хочешь, Антоша, и я честной буду?
Конечно.
My pen drew an outline of a girl's face, her eyes, her long eyelashes. Polina spoke in a hushed voice, probably to keep her grandpa from hearing.
Мне здесь ужасно тоскливо.
Дома?
В поселке. Здесь никогда и ничего не происходит. А если происходит, то всякая гадость. И дело даже не в пропавших детях. Здесь музыки мало.
Но у тебя же кассеты есть.
Я не про записи. Я про... ну, голос этого места. Он не мелодичный. Все шуршит, как патефонная игла, скрипит, воет изредка. Тут неуютно. Тесно очень. Не знаю, как объяснить тебе.
My pen's tip drafted a house surrounded by tall trees.
Кажется, я тебя понимаю. Моя сестренка говорит, что чувствует себя заточенной в темницу.
Вот и я. Я очень люблю дедушку. И бросить его боюсь. Но порой так хочется убежать. Далеко-далеко.
Into the forest, I thought half-heartedly, to run under the falling snowflakes to make your fur white and the branches that hide you from prying eyes.
Я, когда рисую, будто путешествую.
У меня также со скрипкой. Убегаю по снежку в небо.
I realized I was drawing a butterfly nice. I crossed it over. I think how Rumka ruined my mood. Should I tell her? Should I warn her about his plans to seduce her? I could throw a wrench into those plans. What about our Voltron team? They may not be my best friends, but we're still buddies. Who would I become if I betrayed them? Because I remember correctly, I'm gonna need them. Yes, Romka did act horrible from time to time. He was unfair towards others and manipulated the weak. But something told me that friendship wasn't just a word to him. Didn't I wish to make friends in this new place? Even though they were as monstrous as the ancient forest scenery outside my window. I lifted my glasses, rubbed my eyes.
Поскорей бы уже повзрослеть.
My dogs are barking and I don't know why.
Думаешь, будет проще?
The doorbell rang before I could reply. A wandering gaze stumbled upon the door. Romka and Biasha came to pick me up for the rehearsal, and I was supposed to help them lure away the girl I like.
Полин, подожди минутку.
I made a couple of steps and pressed myself into the door. The light bulb hanging on the outside illuminated the porch, and I could discern two short silhouettes through the frozen people. Look at what the cat dragged in.
Подождите, я сейчас!
I returned to the phone and picked up the headset.
Мне надо бежать.
Мне тоже. Спасибо, что выслушал.
My ear vibrated from the buzzing sounds. I lowered the handset on the phone and snuck a peek at the staircase. My mom, engrossed in her favorite TV show, didn't hear the ringer. I put on my shoes and hat without warning anyone and slipped into the dark winter evening. I blinked, getting used to the twilight. The wind plucked at my cheeks. Carried the cold, resinous smell of coniferous trees from the forest. Freezing air crackled somewhere in the field. Two shadows loomed in the front gate. I could only recognize them as my classmates because of their height. I walked towards the fence, listening to the howling wind and the squeaking snow. One of the figures moved and slowly glided toward a thicket like an ice skater. I slowed down and touched my glasses, trying in vain to adjust my vision to the surrounding glasses. Worry landed on my shoulders like a weightless snowflake. A snake woke up in my belly and started writhing. I felt nauseous. I thought about home, the flimsy fortress behind my back. Mom and Oya were sitting on the second floor of the warm house in front of the TV, watching the adventures of characters in Santa Barbara. I really didn't want to be part of Rumka's plan. I wanted even less was going there. Wait, what? Oh, and what I wanted even less was going there. I'm fucking stupid. The place where a double shadow was wavering in the wind.
Ну что, дострялно? Мы тут замерзли совсем.
Biasha's voice was trembling, and the restless Rumka was letting out clouds of steam. He looked deep in thought and in love.
До костей продроглено. Шевелись! Да иду.
I heaved a deep sigh and walked forward, kicking snow piles. Biasha froze in place, facing the taiga. He was a hand's reach away, and I put my numb wrist to his shoulder for some reason, probably to make sure it wasn't a dream. A pointy beak was directed at me, strewn with feathers that formed an owl face. Something wearing a bird mask was staring at me.
До самых косточек.
The voice sounded exactly like Biasha's, but there was somebody else hiding behind the feathers and the cardboard. I sprinted away as if somebody whipped me. The masked creature only pretended to be Biasha. They wanted to lure me out. I was running like crazy, drowning in snow. The house in front of me was rapidly growing. The yellow light in its windows granted me hope. My mom and sister were in there, my salvation. I couldn't hear anything from behind me, as if nobody was chasing me. Maybe it's because the owls can fly. I was already climbing the porch when I noticed another figure. From the soot-black window of my house, a scruffy wolf cub crawled out and stood in my way. Its movements were jerky, chaotic, as it was performing some terrifying dance, or convulsing during a stroke. And even though I could clearly see that the wolf face was a mask, something in this wolf's convulsion made me freeze in place. The boy in wolf's costume rubbed his side against the porch post and fell to his knees. He bent his back so hard that I expected his spine to crack. The beast's eyes shone, but he didn't attack. He kept crawling around and running on all fours. I shifted my feet, my mouth agape, trying to keep him in my line of sight. Something was trickling from the slit of the mask. Vicious drops fell to the wooden planks. Saliva. Some unknown force pushed me in the back, whispering me to save myself. The fence was flashing by at the edge of my vision. I was running in another direction this time, towards a toothy edge of the forest that smelled of pine. My heartbeat measured time. The wolf boy growled behind my back as if he forgot his human nature. My right leg got stuck in the snow-laden cavity. I yanked it out, cursing under my breath, and fell to the ground. Plastering snow prevented me from standing up and propping myself against anything. But my unbound thirst for life helped me get out of that trap. Darkness was creeping closer like the toxic fumes of burial pyres. I ran again, gasping for air that stung my throat. My hair swayed in the wind. I lost my hat when I fell down, and my ears were now hot from the freezing cold while most of my body was still sweaty. The field finally ended. After realizing that running through the forest wasn't the smartest decision I could make, I dove into the line of trees. I ran without stopping, my face covered with one of my palms. I didn't want to lose an eye to some random branch. Branches whipped my clothes, pricked my skin like butchers that were herding a pig into the grinder. A kind of root sprouted from the ground, grabbed my foot. I rammed into the scratchy trunk, slid down to its base, and looked around in a panic.
Ух, какой ты быстрый!
My first desire was to dash toward her and hug her. I resisted it and squeezed myself even tighter into the pine.
Ты... Что ты здесь делаешь?
Да вот,
She was holding the hat I lost.
в бюро находок подрабатываю. Надевай, а то уши замерзнут, а потом, глядишь, и вовсе отвалятся.
She giggled. I squinted in suspicion and shifted my gaze back and forth between her and the hat, scared that Elisa might be holding a severed head or something even more sinister. But in the end, my hat turned out to be just my hat. Refuse. I took it and pulled it over my forehead.
Тепло?
I didn't reply.
Там во дворе были какие-то дети.
И что, покусали тебя, что ли?
Нет.
А чего же ты убежал?
The answer was obvious, but after rolling the thought on my tongue, I mumbled.
Не знаю.
Эх, обещала не обзывать тебя дурачком. А я обещание исполняю.
She walked up to me and grabbed me by the elbow. I sensed a familiar aroma of mint, oranges, and burnt sparklers. I went to lean into Alice to savor the minute details of her smell.
Сколько можно повторять? Со мной ты в безопасности. Я твой друг. И они.
I quickly turned around toward the place the fox girl was pointing to. Kids in masks appeared at the clearing. At least they looked like kids since they were all pretty short. A wolf boy, an owl girl, and a bear boy. They all huff and gasp for air, clearly tired from running around.
Я думала, ты в снег провалился. Стало снег копать, нет тебя.
А я не копал, лень копать было. А ну как получается? Если дурак, ты бегай да копай. А если умный, подожди, пока другие набегаются, накопаются и устанут. И уж тогда заводи разговор.
Как я рад! Дегенерат!
А?
Не обращай внимания, он со странностями.
I stood there stupefied, my mouth agape and my hands dangling helplessly. I had no idea how to react to the words of these late-night guests, but I managed to squeeze out something resembling a smile.
Вы просто меня напугали.
They started looking at each other. Somebody even snorted, as if I said something funny.
Да, Лиса права!
Это он.
Нет, это наш! Неужели нашли?
наш зайчик.
Да-да, похож.
The wolf boy started wagging a part of his costume like it was his tail in excitement.
Ну, конечно, ты первый. Это Волчик раньше всех почуял зайчика в тебе и рассказал нам.
Здравствуй.
С нашей совушкой ты знаком не понаслышке. Не такая уж она и страшная, правда?
Да, наверное.
А этот улыбчивый бугай — медвежутка. Ты лучше с ним поласковее, а то голову откусит.
Зачем это?
Да, смотрю, ты чувство юмора где-то обронил.
I was still unsure if these peculiar little animals had the best intentions in mind, so I hid my hands behind my back, trying to look away from the gaping holes on their carnival masks. Elisa put her hands to her sides in a theatrical manner and somehow managed to wink with her fox face.
Когда в следующий раз придем, будем звенеть в колокольчики, чтобы ты не так боялся нашего визита.
А у нас разве есть колокольчики?
Чур, я звенеть не буду. У меня лапка болит.
My smile was no longer fake.
О, зубы показал! Это добрый знак. Не ожидала, что сможем тебя рассмешить. Я думала, это под силу только Диснейленду.
Откуда ты знаешь?
Да так, прочитала кое-где.
Про меня?
Про клюв от воробья. Про Диснейленд яхонтовый.
Ты умеешь читать по-человечески?
You can read human.
Зря я, что ли, в школу хожу день ото дня.
And then she sang in a coquettish voice.
Как детей не замечать, как мечты их развенчать. Учат в школе, учат в школе, учат в школе. Крепко-накрепко вломить, с детства слабеньких чморить. Учат в школе, учат в школе, учат в школе.
I let out a cautious laugh. My new acquaintances didn't seem scary anymore. On the contrary, they looked friendly and welcoming. There was something about them that attracted me. Just like this clearing, this moon, and the snowflakes that fell backwards from the ground to the sky as if somebody was rewinding a tape. The masked kids got close and I felt their touch. They gave me friendly taps, felt my clothes, as if checking whether I was real. There was no animalistic malice in their touch, only pure childish curiosity. For some reason, I thought to myself, I can't trust them. Snowflakes just kept on floating upwards.
Никто тебя больше не обидит.
Друг.
Пусть только попробуют.
Fox gave me a slight tug and burst out laughing.
Ну что, Тоша, убежишь с воплями или с нами пойдешь?
Куда?
На аттракционы!
At that moment, Tiger's deceptive silence was broken by the sound of a distant flute. Mesmerizing and alluring, it brought about the ring of crystal glass and the whispers of a fresh winter spring. If I had any doubts before, the flute song shattered the last of them. I started following my new friends before I could even make my decision. My legs carried me of their own will, and the tunnels made of pines stepped apart, bushes bowed in front of our procession. Everything looked dreamlike, because even the clearing we ended up on I slowly saw in a dream. The flute soared up in the treetops like some fantastical bird. The snowflakes floated up in a spiral. The moon painted tree branches with silver. Lisa gasped in amazement. I was also in awe. I tilted my head backwards as far as I could.
О, красиво как.
Очень красиво.
Wolfie howled in agreement.
Это мелочи. Я покажу гораздо больше. Если захочешь.
I wanted to see what the fox girl saw with their eyes, hidden in the semi-dark of her cape. Now I didn't feel weird about these masked kids. I felt weird for being the only one without a mask. I felt like I was naked in the January winds.
Скажите, а зачем вам маски?
I was trembling, but I wasn't scared. My trembling wasn't caused by the cold. It originated from the peculiar anxiousness, the anticipation of something amazing.
А тебе зачем?
I touched my cold cheek.
Но я без маски.
Обожаю человеческие сказки.
Человеческие ласки.
Человеческие дрязги.
Я же говорила. Все жители поселка носят маски. Только скрываются за ними отнюдь не люди.
И даже я?
Ты такой рассеянный, Антон.
Однажды мы уже нашли твои очки.
И шапку. И твое настоящее лицо.
I looked at the mask the fox was holding out to me. The body mask that looked like a silver ingot under the moonlight. I was curious to see the world through its slits. I can't refuse, can I? Damn it. Suddenly, fighting its way through the flute's melody, a thought came to me. The glasses they found were in Simeon's possession. My new acquaintances must have known what happened to him. Or even worse.
А куда подевался Семён? Что с ним стало? И с остальными детьми?
Bear and Owl looked at each other. The wolf boy curled into a ball and the fox lowered its pointy nose over a mask.
Тот, кого держали в клетке.
Тот, кто режет мелко-мелко. Тот, кто носит кожаное лицо, забрал их.
Умел бы я креститься, перекрестился бы.
Хотите сказать, это был человек?
Чем ты только слушал? Разве можно назвать такого, как он, человеком?
Одно слово — взрослый.
В мире взрослых так легко потеряться.
Убийцы, жестокие дрессировщики и равнодушные родители. Лучше об этом вовсе не думать, чтобы не грустить. Не знаю, как вам, а мне печалиться совсем не хочется.
И я сегодня какой-то негрустный. Антон, а ты?
А?
I was lost in thought, staring at the pines trying to pinpoint the location of the flute. I was sure that the person who played it was standing right behind the piney stockade. Someone tall, going over the holes of the flute with their long fingers.
Так что, сядем тосковать или займемся отдыхом?
Алиса хотела что-то показать.
Давай начнем с самой сладкой части программы.
The fox girl took out a handful of candy from her pocket and handed them to each of the kids. Covers shuffled, the smell of pineapple, coca, and melon wafted through the air. The last treat, a chocolate-covered waffle candy, Elisa put right in my mouth. I don't like that. I really don't like that. My tongue was engulfed in spiciness. I felt like my body was covered in fur and small sparks were running along it. I chewed on the waffle and the chocolate, gulped them down, and enjoyed the vivid taste.
Спасибо.
My gratitude was barely audible because my lips were already touching the insides of the mask. I didn't even notice how I put it against my face. The paper mache was warm, and the mask stuck to my skin, giving it a nice prickle. The kind when you dive into a hot bath after being outside in winter, when you lie there and purr from the soapy water.
Говорила же, это твое!
Моё.
Чего стоим? За нас веселиться никто не будет.
И то верно.
The melody kept swirling in the field like a hurricane. I couldn't wait to release the energy, the heat that this enchanting music was filling me with. The owl jumped and disappeared into the sky. I heard her laughter from somewhere above, and then she landed back, huffing and sighing.
И ты так можешь. Попробуй.
I followed suit. My feet tore off the ground, and I flew toward the stars like a rocket and screamed from happiness of seeing my friends down below. The wind helped me fly. It felt like I was jumping on a huge trampoline. The stars looked like vivid sparkles that I could reach and lick up. The moon got closer, and then I plunged. I got scared that I'd break my legs for a moment, but my soles landed softly on the ground, and I regained my balance.
С нами ты в безопасности. И все твои мечты станут явью. Я так счастлива наконец обрести тебя. Зайчик!
In a fit of merry laughter, I realized the most important thing: these four are not a threat. My real enemies, and I felt that with every single hair on my mask, were those who knew nothing about magic. Humans from the village. I also realized how alive my surroundings have become. I heard the dry grass under the snow moan. I saw faces of the trees and the stars. The trees were smirking and the stars were grimacing in fear. That's right, be scared. I'll jump up to you and I'll snap my teeth, then let out a jubilant laugh, jumping up along with the fox. We flew higher than the tallest pine and stayed in the air. I swirled, at least I followed my rhythm. I knew she was smiling, so I smiled too. And the flute just kept on playing, carrying us higher and higher.
Ты чё, опять в облаках витаешь?
Not with you around, I thought, trying to unglue my chin from the desk. My muscles felt slightly sore, but that feeling was pleasant. The whole class was wondering about for some reason, whispering and passing notes to each other. Their faces looked like discolored masks to me, bleaking and boring. I yawned, remembering the time I was soaring high above the forest, with Lisa by my side, laughing and squeezing my hand. Perhaps? No, probably it was all just a dream. Because I didn't walk back from the forest, I just woke up in my bed on a normal morning with tea and medicine. Still, I was hardly worried about trying to find a rational explanation to my night dance. That feeling of flight was much more important. The knowledge of how it feels to be hanging in the air above the treetops of majestic pines and baring my teeth at the moon.
Ну чего?
Чё-чё? Пока ты носом клевал, Катька пропала.
My sleepiness was gone in an instant. I frowned in suspicion.
Как пропала? Быть не может.
Get fucked, bitch. Should I say that about children? Yeah, get fucked, bitch. Oh, Christ, that episode was 2 hours fucking long. Well, actually, probably a little less than that. Biesa joined us at the table, gnawing anxiously at his lower lip. What time is it? 12, okay.
Тосик, ты почти в этом сраном лесу живёт. Вчера ничего странного не видел.
I replied with a complete lie.
Нет.
Я тоже. Повезло, что классуха моим родакам нажаловалась из-за оценок. Вот меня и не выпустили вечером на репетицию. А то на месте Катьки оказались бы мы.
Biasha scratched at his Adam's apple.
Это... Я что сказать хотел-то? Я кое-что слышал. Этим утром я, как обычно, в школу шел. Вдруг слышу плач за деревьями. Девчатей. Сечетина. Ну, я про Катьку-то не знал тогда. Да и знал бы, стрёмно оно, братки. Утро у нас не лучше ночи. Темно, как в зопе. Вдруг это Катька была, а? А главное, вместе таком паршивом в буреломе, что неподалеку от кладбища.
Хорош пургу гнать.
Да зуб даю на! Сам слышал!
А вы уверены, что Катя действительно пропала?
Вон, Лилия Павловна, Катькина матушка, даже на работу не пришла.
Слетела контрольная она! Как пить дать, пацаны, это Катька в тайге стонала! А значит, и до нее маньячела добрался!
I remember Katya. She was both beautiful and mean. The first girl in our class with a maturing body, to the envy of all the other girls. The main source of gossip, a snake and a bitch. Biasha started counting with his fingers.
Сенечка, Вова, Семен, Катя. 4 человека, да.
Curious. Roma slammed his hands on the desk.
Так, пацаны, отныне смотреть в оба. Далеко друг от друга не отходим, как в дурацких ужастиках.
Fair point.
На остальных мне плевать, но вас я в обиду не дам. Как и Полинку.
I hope your relationship works out. I'd already forgotten that I was ever into Polina. The only girl occupying my thoughts after last night was Elisa. The boys went to the cafeteria and I was left alone, scribbling in my notebook, drawing rows of pines and 2 small figures, flying between the treetops and the full moon. Shivers ran up to my shoulders, indicating painfully under the hem of my shirt. Even though the soaring through the sky felt so simple, there was still something evil weighing down on me. Was it the stolen signet ring or the heavy look those missing kids from the noseboard were giving me? The culprit was definitely still in the village. They were hiding something horrible under a mask of politeness.
Рисуешь?
Embarrassed, I covered the notebook as if there was something shameful about the figures above the forest.
Да ничего, так, дурака валяю.
Polina put her elbows on the desk. I had already forgotten how light and graceful she was, just like a violin. I wish she could just also jump around with us after tripping away her mask of fake mundanity. I smiled, imagining Polina's skirt flapping in the wind, the stars sparkling all around us, her asking in bewilderment whether it was all a dream. And myself telling her that it doesn't matter. Polina's expression grew dark again.
Уже слышал про Катю?
Ужасно.
Да. Ужасно еще и то, что Катю мне жалеть сложно. Я правда ищу в себе сострадание, но вспоминаю ее поступки и...
Polina shook her head.
Я чудовище, да?
No, I thought, you're one of the most beautiful girls I ever met, but alas, you're only number 2 on that list. I decided not to say that out loud.
Плохо, наверное, что исчезновение анкеты расстроило меня больше, чем пропажа одноклассницы.
My nostrils picked up the smell of candy, tree resin, and fireworks.
Ты потеряла анкету?
Да, и кто-то сейчас читает чужие секреты.
Yes, the forest, I thought, imagining the crooked branches turning notebook pages, touching the childish handwriting with their icy twigs.
Надеюсь, ее найдут.
I was unsure whether she spoke about Katya or her notebook. I wanted to ask her about it, but then I noticed Polina's intense stare directed at me.
Что?
Ты будто изменился.
I smoothed my hair flat, surprised.
Просто не выспался.
Сегодня ты точно какая-то другая мелодия. Очень древняя, таинственная.
I thought about the flute's melody streaming between the bushy treetops.
Надеюсь, ты никому не рассказал про наш вчерашний разговор?
Что ты?
She nodded, as if acknowledging that she can fully trust me. I was unsure whether I merited such trust.
А может, погуляем после уроков? Дедушка чувствует себя лучше. Я могу задержаться вечером.
Her hair cascaded down around her shoulders. The smell was so wonderful that it sent me flying toward the glowing stars of my inner Cosmo without any magic.
Почему бы и нет? Давай.
Тогда после алгебры на заднем дворе.
She leaned forward and looked at me with her piercing eyes again. Then mumbled as if guessing.
Что-то из мусорского? Нет, пожалуй.
Then she left, and Romka appeared in the doorway in her place, plopped on the seat next to me, and started whispering in my ear.
Ты с ней говорил?
Biasha walked towards us, but Roma stopped him with an angry glare.
Беш, отвали на пару минут.
Biasha curled his lips in frustration and disappeared from the classroom. Roma returned his attention to me.
Ну, говорил или нет? Она что-то сказала про меня?
I could barely stop myself from flashing a sad, desperate smile. Romka, the leader of Team Voltron, was in love, madly in love. His gaze boiled with hope, pleas, worries. He looked like a pure, naive boy that shielded himself from the world with sports, delinquency, and coldness. Could I really betray him in this moment of weakness? Could I make the right choice in a situation where nothing is right? I faked the cough before speaking.
Она спрашивала, где ты будешь после уроков.
His face the next moment was worth the effort of telling this lie. Romka was beaming with happiness.
А ты что?
Сказал, что ты будешь на заднем дворе.
Romka licked his lips in excitement. He grabbed my wrist so hard I thought it would break.
Ну, Тоха! Ну, спасибо, друг! Погнали скорее готовиться! Ща мы закатим такую шоу-программу, что прям ого-го!
Isn't she in the same room? Shouldn't you be quieter? I left the classroom to join the grouchy Biasha, and I was left alone to stare blankly at Polina's empty seat. I just traded one friendship for another. Let's just hope I made the right choice. The bell's echo wandered aimlessly in the school's darkest corners. I flew into the yard with my coat still half zipped. The weather forecast didn't lie about the coming blizzard. A leaden snow cloud was coming at us from the north. A mighty roar bubbled inside of it. The other kids stood with their back to the wind and laughed when the gust pushed them around the skating rink. The blizzard carried that laughter into the violet unknown. Romka rushed my way as soon as he noticed me in the tiny school backyard that was usually empty.
Готов? Точно не сдрейфишь? Второго шанса не будет.
I wasn't ready, at all. My stomach stung. It wanted me to get out of here, to bail out from the stupid idea that was destined to fail from the very beginning. But I couldn't abandon Romka halfway through purely on principle. He, in the meantime, was hurriedly counting our inventory with his ink-stained fingers.
Букет есть. Маньяк присутствует. Чё там еще?
А что с моим образом? Где мой топор или там... маска?
Да не гони, Тоха! Надень ту зайчью, что с собой по жизни таскаешь. Только резче! Нельзя, чтобы Полина нас видела вместе.
I looked at Romka with distrust, but my fingers already found the slider on the backpack zipper and tugged at it in anticipation. Instead of getting surprised, I felt relief when I took out my real face. With it came calmness. The pain in my stomach subsided. I instantly remembered the feeling of flight, weightlessness, and joy. Romka's problems seemed so yawn-inducing and insignificant now.
Давай, как репетировали. Только она появится.
Я прегражу ей дорогу.
Ага, а я из-за тех кустов такой бац! И на выручку. Только веди себя посмелей, Тошек. Чтоб как взаправду.
Я постараюсь себя не сдерживать.
The simple piece of cardboard and fur carried enough energy to compete with the blizzard's fury. I put my real face on top of my glasses, gleeful. I fixed it so my eyes would look right through the slits. Romka disappeared. Instead, Polina walked out from around the corner, looking around warily. She had her trusty violin case with her. Fresh snow squeaked under her boots. Clouds devoured the sun, and the coming darkness turned me into a long-eared silhouette. After looking at me with suspicion, Polina started circling around the yard. She didn't recognize me. I stepped in front of Polina, not at all worried that my height or my clothes could give away my identity.
Ты случаем не потерялась, деточка?
She frowned and stepped back towards the bushes. Romka immediately appeared out of them, swearing. He moved sideways in an awkward manner like a crab, while still hiding his hand behind those flowers behind his back.
Эй, садись, проклятый! Пока я здесь, никто не обидит эту девушку. Понял? Ты!
I couldn't help but cringe and roll my eyes under the mask. Romka's voice sounded fake and totally idiotic. He's way more believable during our rehearsal. I paid it no mind and brazenly grabbed Polina by the collar, pulling her closer. Our fingers ran across her silky bangs. Polina let out an angry shriek, but that only made me smirk. I was overflowing with permissiveness and impunity. I intended to push Polina to the ground and grope her so hard I'd leave bruises until the babbling Romka acquired proper acting skills.
Говорю, не тронь!
I didn't listen, just kept on going, drunk on my power, and Romka's confusion that stopped him from doing anything but mumbling silently to himself. And I could do anything under the guise of the money.
Прояви терпение, Рохля. Сейчас закончу с девчонкой и обязательно возьмусь за тебя.
Romka's eyes widened in surprise. I could tell he tried to keep his cool and stay true to his role for a moment. But before the amateur superior could do anything, Polina intervened.
Так, что тут происходит? Пятифан, ты уберешь своего дружка?
Polina swung her case and hit me so hard I immediately sobered up.
Я же... Он мне...
Думаете, я вчера на свет появилась? Бяша, небось? Или...
She looked at me as if her eyes could pierce the cardboard mask. Even under the dim light around us, I could see her indigent face redden.
Антон? Вот не думала, что ты такой.
I started mumbling, looking for an excuse, and Wayne hoped that Romka would be the first to explain everything. But that failure of an actor just stared at a snow pile, his face red beat from embarrassment. Playing such a big show and screwing up even bigger. Polina watched us with her fist clutched before she suddenly shouted.
Клоуны!
Her loud verdict still ricocheted off the school walls like a trapped dove, when Polina broke into a run on the snow-covered asphalt. Her shadow waved like the hem of a dress and disappeared around the corner. Romka hanged his head in shame. A battered bouquet plopped down in gray muddle of wet snow.
Это фиаско, братан.
I took off the mask. I took off the mask from my sweaty face. The wind cooled my skin. I felt like, along with the mask, I took off a layer of intrusive thoughts and emotions. Rumka screeched with his teeth, staring down at his feet. Lost and depressed, he couldn't counter fate's punches, unlike me. I knew how terrible he felt. He was ready to crush everything around him or bang his head against the concrete. He was ready to do anything but ask Polina to come back. He was strong and brave, but his fear of showing any weakness impeded on him greatly. A possible resolution flashed in my mind. I placed my hand on Rumka's shoulder.
Жди.
I sprinted across the courtyard trying to catch up to Polina. Neko followed my footsteps. The girl's violin case swayed like the tail of an annoyed cat.
Полин!
She slowed down but didn't turn around.
Ну, Полин!
I could finally see her pretty profile.
Чего?
I caught up to her and carefully grabbed her by the elbow. She didn't yank it away. It was a good sign.
Ты все неправильно поняла.
Polina brushed a lock of hair off her face. I thought that she probably stole that move from one of the Sharon Stone movies. Her voice was still strict.
Что тут понимать-то? Ромка спланировал геройский поступок. В кавычках, конечно. А ты вызвался быть шутом, от которого он меня защитит. Еще и маску где-то нашел. Гадкую такую.
Ouch. Wanted to shout, it's not ugly at all, but said something completely different instead.
А вот и не поняла. Ты Ромке очень нравишься.
Curiosity flashed in her eyes. I wanted to hug Polina, steal her, and lead her into the forest. I wanted to introduce her to my new friends. I wanted the flute to sing. Polina would have surely liked its melody. I wanted us to jump up in the sky, above the clouds. There, under the stars that are pinned to the night sky, I would tell Polina how much I needed her. That she's like water and I'm dying from thirst.
Я думала, я тебе нравлюсь.
I played dumb.
Мне?
Polina fought out of my clutches, annoyed.
Все ясно.
Да постой же, нравишься! Ты всем нравишься! Но Ромка, он особенный.
Особенный лжец.
Он целеустремленный и на самом деле серьезнее, чем кажется. Помнишь, ты говорила о побеге? С ним бы ты точно сбежала. В какой-нибудь большой сверкающий город. Да куда угодно. Он обещал защищать тебя.
Polina stared into the darkness outside the school's boundaries. There was only the wind and the swirling snow.
И что теперь прикажешь? От его обещаний детей рожать?
Для начала узнать поближе, дать ему шанс. Шутки шутками, а настоящий маньяк еще на свободе. Позволь Ромке проводить тебя сегодня.
I forced myself to speak, but my lips went numb and my face turned to stone. I was afraid that my voice would give away my true feelings. Words were like razors that cut my chest and my windpipe before scattering out of my mouth. Polina stayed silent for what felt like an eternity and beyond. She snored angrily and tapped her fingers on the black violin case. Finally, she sighed and spoke.
Передай своему Ромке, что я жду у школьных ворот. Но чтоб не думал себе всякое.
I feigned happiness. I could fake emotions if need be.
Ты не пожалеешь.
I slowly shuffled my way around the corner, my eyes shut tight and my heart beating like a hammer that drove nails deep into my soul. Romka sat in a squatting position, ruffling his short hair.
Она ждет тебя у ворот.
I was rewarded with the amazed look on my buddy's face. He sprang up, choking on words. Total opposite of the shut-off silent leader that I just met last week.
Тош, ты спас меня! Братан, да я теперь твой должник на века!
Goddamn right you are, bitch. Get in the forest. Your soul's next.
Хочешь, я тебе Тетрис подгоню? А хочешь, научу рукопашным приемам? Или...
I only had one dream, to be left alone. So I could watch the forest sway in the wind in complete silence. So I could breathe the frosty smell through the old mask.
Иди уже.
I hope that when it comes to Elisa, I won't need to choose between friendships and my feeling. I have no one left apart from her. Well, maybe also Oya. But of course, she was my only ray of light in this pitch-black taiga. How could I forget about my little sister?
Я знаю, чего я хочу.
Rumka, who already started walking, stopped and looked at me.
Я хочу оказаться вместе с сестрой в Диснейленде.
My buddy smirked and pulled his hat from the back of his head.
И что ты предлагаешь? Сберкассу обнести?
Нет, надо просто поймать маньяка. Того, кто в ответе за все эти похищения. И получить обещанную награду в милиции.
Rumka winced in his hands. Rumka winced and hid his hands in the pockets of his pants.
Думаешь, тебе этот лейтенант что-то за сотрудничество отстегнет? Подарит максимум часы командирские и будь здоров.
I got tired of arguing with Rumka.
Ты поможешь мне? Да или нет?
Я сказал уже, мы команда. Куда ты, туда и я.
Хорошо. Теперь понять бы, с чего начинать.
Слушай. Бяша говорил, что слышал плач в буреломе за кладбищем. Готов поспорить, это была Катька.
I tensed up like a guitar string. Kaya was a step towards Semyon, and he was a step toward Vova. We'll help the police arrest that accursed killer, and our village would stop living in fear. And then adults would lift the restrictions that prohibit Oya from going outside. And I'd finally be able to teach her how to jump to the sky with her new friends.
Как тогда будем действовать?
Так сразу не скажу, да и время поджимает. Давай пересечемся у дома Полины через час. Нет, лучше через 1,5. Знаешь, где она живет?
I remember the house number. I sneakily looked up in Polina's questionnaire.
Думаю, найду.
Отлично, мне пора.
And Romka sped off, leaving me alone to try to calm down my galloping heart. Maybe now, when I have Romka's support, this nightmare will finally end. Biasha, who was chewing on some sunflower seeds, grimaced as soon as I approached him.
Смотрите-ка! Фу, явился, не запалился на. Бросили меня тут на. И срулили вдвоем. Голубки.
Brother, I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm gonna tell you to fuck off, because I know you'll end up dead.
Еще она команда Вольтрона называется. Фу.
Biasha gave me a morose look and turned away. For a minute, I pondered whether Biasha could help us search for Kalia, but what if Rumka's crony will only ruin everything? Yeah, no, not gonna lie, dude. This is for your own good. I'm not inviting you because you're gonna run off in the floor. Yeah, nah. I could believe in Rumka's friendship, but his sycophant and servant Biasha disgusted me.
Чего ты сразу как девчонка обижаешься? Вот уж не подумал, что ты так в роль вживешься.
He let out a poisonous laugh.
Да посливно! Тоже мне друзья! Если сгинете, я по вам скучать не буду. Вы...
Да иди уже.
He left the schoolyard in defiance after throwing the sunflower seed packet at my feet. I waited for an excruciating long time. After the longest 1.5 hours of my life, I felt like my brain was put into a blender and ground into gray mush. Excuse me. Anxious thoughts overlapped in my head. Kaya, who went missing. The forest. The serial killer. The crypts, the grave, the crosses.
А Бяша где? Засал, поди?
Bringing up Rumka's date was clearly necessary. I could tell it went wonderful by the wide grin on his face. Rumka rammed me jokingly in the side.
Ну, ходу, Кент.
At the same time, the village folk cooked dinners inside their homes, watched their TVs, fought over silly things. Grim-faced men smoked on their porches, while rollers creaked. The blizzard arced around the village, but it wasn't the blizzard that worried or scared me. The forest grew in front of our faces, and I wasn't sure if we entered it or it just devoured us with its toothy gnaw. I think there's a guy somewhere, right? Pines creaked and long shadows stretched from the taiga. They bent their trunks on both sides of the road. None of us spoke a single word when we stepped into the windbreak. Pale fog streamed from the ravines, its tails swirling in a ghostly dance. Keeping an eye out for that dude, because I think he's here somewhere. The nauseous smell of church candle wax around us muddled my mind. The snow slurped, giving away under the soles of my shoes. Bumps all around us reminded me of funeral mounds, with twisted, wilting trees acting as crosses. Darkness wailed and bubbled from beneath the frozen swamps. The wind howled in anger. Keeping track of time became meaningless. At some point, we stopped before a pile of windfall.
Значит так. Поисковая операция начинается. Далеко не разбредаемся, ищем любые следы Кати или похитителя. И желательно, Тоха, поживее. Уже через час станет темно, хоть глаз выколи.
Our search was unsuccessful. The cursed forest was great at keeping its secrets. We were about to go home when a branch cracked in the ravine behind us, and a pack of scared crows flew into the sky. Romka took out his knife with a steady motion and poked it into the oncoming darkness.
Слышал, там кто-то бродит. Возможно, наш маньяк.
It felt as if the night itself heard its words, and we saw a tall, scary silhouette woven from the twilight and soot. The creature towered over the stumps and in crooked branches that melted into the fog, but then it started walking towards us, fast. It clearly wasn't a ghost. The approaching sound of cracking branches told me it was something corporeal.
Что дальше, Ром?
А я почем знаю? Ты же хотел его выцепить.
The figure was running our way, jumping over a fallen tree.
Не стой столбом, хватай дрын какой-нибудь.
I barely managed to uproot a branch as big as a lap to bat. My soot-smeared hands shook.
Не ссы. Я уже махался со взрослыми. Главное,
Romka tried to remain brave, but his voice trembled.
не вздумай меня тут кинуть одного, ясно?
I nodded silently and noticed the huffing man fishing something out of inside his pocket. Our battle brother screamed like a madman and attacked. I followed him, but I was mostly screaming from terror. The both of us rose in place. My makeshift club fell to the ground. We were staring down the grooved barrel of a Makarov gun, which made us step back in fear.
Пятифанов! А ну брось нож! Чтоб вас!
The unknown man stepped into the moonlight, and only then I recognized it was Senior Lieutenant Tikhonov. He stared us down, frowning, and then spat loudly to the side.
Фу! Провалиться мне на месте!
I've never seen this before.
Только вас двоих мне здесь и не хватало!
Romka wore an evil smirk.
Так я и думал, что это ты, легавый, тот самый маньячелло.
Пожалуйста, отпустите! Мы ничего не скажем!
Да заткнитесь вы оба! Я вшивых 4 часа на морозе провел! А вы мне всю засаду испортили, паразиты.
We let our hands hang, embarrassed.
Полезай-ка в бобик.
Huh.
В участке расскажете, что вы тут забыли.
So... So if we had Biasha, we would have found Katya. But if we didn't bring Biasha, we wouldn't have. Okay. Inside the police station was permeated by the smell of chibruki and cigar smoke. From the depths of it, a muffled voice of Tatiana Bolanova could be heard. I thought that it should be impossible to work with such a tear-jerking ambience. The atmosphere was fit for a funeral. I've heard Dad mention a monkey house before. It's a cell where they hold criminals right after catching them. Its thick metal bars look scary, just like in the movies, and then I got the urge to draw this place. I took a moment to imagine who I would put inside the cage for my drawing. Romka immediately came to mind. He would definitely look good behind bars. An old gas mask hung from a nearby chair. Good to know that the police remember about safety drills. Only, where's the filter? Or do they use this gas for something else here? Is there only two? It's kind of stupid. I shook my head, chasing away grim thoughts, then shook off my hat and stroked my hand against my ruffled hair. Snow thawed off my soles, leaving wet prints on the tiles. The clock ticked loudly, and the children who perished in the night looked at us from the attention wanted board. The composite sketch I drew wasn't among the printed photos of criminals.
Располагайтесь. А ты куда, Пятифанов, присел? Тебя вон персональное место в обезьяннике дожидается.
А чё я сделал-то?
На офицера при исполнении с ножом напал. Тебе мало?
The policeman shifted his heavy gaze to me.
Ты бы, Петров, друзей осторожнее выбирал. А то, считай, знакомый всего ничего, а ты уже дров наломал. На учет поставлю, как некоторых.
Ой, знаем мы ваши учеты, лишь бы отчетность закрыть. А настоящие преступники до сих пор на свободе.
Но-но! Смотри, не образумишься, как папаша твой. По малолетке загремишь.
Я вас еще удивлю.
Пасть закрой. Отвечайте, что в лесу делали в комендантский час?
Константин Владимирович, мы Катю искали.
I already knew how he would react.
Помощнички выискались. Такими темпами вас самих искать придется. В газету захотели попасть. В рубрику «Помним, любим, скорбим».
Нет, но...
Петров, признавайся, ведь не сам ты это придумал. Пятифанов подговорил, да? Все хихоньки да хахоньки.
No, actually, it was my idea. Romka rolled his eyes.
Завел старую песню.
Никто меня не подговаривал. Я сам хотел маньяка поймать.
Это вам повезло, что вы на меня наткнулись. А я ведь предупреждал по-хорошему, чтобы ты дома сидел. На кой лад тебе этот маньяк вообще сдался?
I lowered my head in embarrassment.
Награду хочу.
Senior Lieutenant crossed his hands on his chest and heaved a deep sigh.
Денег, значит. И куда тебе столько денег?
У родителей долги.
Да вся страна у нас в долгах, как в шелках. И дальше что? Думаешь, твоя пропажа им поможет?
The whole country is balls deep in debt. You think it would help him? Yeah? I think most countries are in debt to other countries at this point. I sniffled, upset.
Да им уже ничего не поможет. Они дня без скандала прожить не могут. Просто хочу, чтобы мы с Олей были счастливы.
Tikhonov thought for a bit, drumming his fingers against the table that had a stack of papers on top.
Не плачь, пацан. Все образуется. И родители помирятся, и маньяка найдем.
In a perfect world, maybe.
Ага, и страну поднимем.
Пятифанов, договоришься у меня.
Tikhonov flashed us sturdy teeth, but I still decided to stand my ground for my Olya's sake.
Эй, черт с вами. В этот раз устное предупреждение вам. Но в следующий раз пеняйте на себя.
He waved his finger at us.
Увижу еще раз, что в потемках шароебитесь. Уши откручу.
Today. Bulanova let out her last whimper. The room descended into complete silence. As if on autopilot, I wandered toward the police noseboard, leaving wet footprints in my wake. I just stood in front of it, staring at the photos of Shenchka, Semyon, and Katya. They stared back at me. When Tikhonova's hand went on my shoulder, I couldn't help but shudder.
Эх, Антон, знал бы ты, как часто я на них смотрю.
Лучше бы преступника ловили, а не на фотки пялились.
I thought that Tikhonov would get mad, but he swallowed Rumka's brazen remark.
По-вашему, я не хочу на этого козла браслеты надеть? Взять под белые рученьки да к стенке поставить? Да я с этой мыслью и спать ложусь, и просыпаюсь. Знаете, что мне снится ночами? Вам лучше и не знать.
He stopped as if his thoughts were that heavy, and then walked slowly toward his desk, sighing. We listened to him in silence.
Дело это, глухарь. Нашли мы детские следы, ведущие в лес метров на 50. Да только там они и обрываются. А дальше сплошная чертовщина. Привлекли кинологов. На собаки след не берут. Скулят только жалобно. С добровольцами весь лес прочесали, ни единой зацепки. 25 квадратных километров истоптали. Маньяк этот в норах звериных прячется, что ли. А на днях кто-то из местных заявил, что слышит детский смех по ночам. Мол, это пропавшие дети к нему с того света являются и в окошко заглядывают. С ума все посходили. Ну что тут взять? Еще и улики таинственным образом пропадать стали.
The lieutenant massaged his nose bridge.
А ведь такое в нашем поселке не впервой. Помню, лет 30 назад был похожий случай. Также исчезали ребятишки. Хоть на похитителей не вышли, но все же тогда следствие лучше сработало. 2 детей удалось спасти. Вот, сохранил на память с той поры.
The policeman carefully handed me a poster, yellowed from time.
В смысле?
Так это были вы?
Так точно. Я ведь в этот участок в первый раз в вашем возрасте попал. Помню, зима была, метель. Но вот дела. Что со мной было, хоть убейте, не помню. Нашел меня в тайге тогдашний участковый. Говорит, лежал я в отключке, весь в сосновых иголках.
Tikhonov tilted his head, drowning in the fog of his fragmented memories.
Это благодаря ему я это гиблое дело не бросаю. Долг мой до правды докопаться.
So this has all happened before. Huh.
Вы сказали, что 2 спасли, а второй кто?
Да в жизни не догадаешься. Второй, точнее вторая.
Tikhonov wasn't able to finish the sentence. The door flew open along with the blowing wind. Lilia Pavlovna staggered into the station, gasping for air. I jumped up from surprise and stood at attention, but the teacher didn't even notice us.
Нет ее! Не пришла! Вы сказали, придет! Сказали, она у подружек, а ее нет! Нет моей Катеньки!
Lilia Pavlovna wailed while covering her face with her hands. Romka and I exchanged quick glances.
Успокойтесь. Тише.
Да как же мне успокоиться? Кровиночка моя!
The lieutenant hugged Lilia Pavlovna by the shoulders and gave a curt nod our way.
Брысь.
We backed out into the doorway toward the wind's merciless whipping.
Дохлый номер. Не помогут нам мусора. Одна надежда на нас самих.
But Biasha's alive, I think. At that moment, I felt like there was nothing else in the world apart from the wind and the long shadows that wandered in the dark. And that we were also destined to become such shadows. Romka stretched out his hand to say goodbye. I felt like the moment I loosened my grip on his palms, I wake up in the forest without my memories, unless I get eaten alive, of course. He let go of my hand and left. I squirmed in the freezing cold, hesitant to leave the illuminated circle in the front of the police station. The front door was open and swayed slightly in the wind. I felt like my skin was getting covered in rime. I clenched my fists. Darkness oozed into the hallway, and snowflakes floated inside along with it, landing softly on the rug, like a pack of vultures that sensed their food. I stepped into the doorway with the utmost caution. For a moment, I thought I heard someone talking in the kitchen, but it turned out to be a radio broadcast.
Призвал жителей соблюдать меры предосторожности. Дороги перекрыты. Холодная воздушная масса арктического происхождения несет с собой буран.
I heard voices coming from the upper floor, too. The staircase let out a long squeak. I took one step, yet my heart managed to beat 6 or 7 times in the meantime. The door to my parents' bedroom was ajar. A shadow play unfolded inside a light spot. Black silhouettes were performing a dance of hatred. Mom hissed at Dad, her wrist flying toward the ceiling, and he towered over her, his hands crossed on his huge chest.
Мы все в опасности. И все из-за тебя. И не ври, ты видел его в поселке. Он вычислил, где мы живем.
Это был не он!
Я читала в газетах, на что способны твои дружки.
I ran toward my bedroom. My parents were in the middle of another quarrel, where they showered each other with mutual accusations. Dad let out a low, beast-like roar.
Пусть они прекратят!
Oya stood in the corridor, pressing her little palms against her ears. Her face, swollen from crying, made my skin freeze.
Что случилось?
Они разведутся!
I hugged my sister and held her tight. My tongue refused to listen to my commands, to look for excuses. I felt like the screams were coming from every direction, right and left, up and down, splitting my head apart. Swear words rained down on us as we covered our heads with our hands, like refugees running from a bombing.
Я хочу уйти!
В свою комнату?
Нет! Дальше! Отведи меня в Небыляндию! Ты обещал!
Carefully unglued Oya's hands from her ears and led her away from the room with our parents, which was vibrating with malice.
Из-за тебя!
Ради кого?
Только тебя!
Никогда в жизни!
In moments like these, I despise them more than they despise each other. I bolted down the door to my room and leaned against it. My knees gave way.
Почему тебя не было так долго?
Я пытался помочь одной девочке.
Ты помог ей?
Не думаю.
Something hit the window's ledge on the outside. Olia shuddered and shifted her gaze towards it. Bam! Another snowball smacked into the window's frame.
Ты ждешь кого-то?
I didn't reply. Instead, I let go of her wrist. Oya wept in fear. Across the room, wincing from every shout coming from my parents, I could hear plates getting smashed now. They must have moved their argument to the kitchen. I flung the curtains and the window open. Hootie, Teddy, Wolfie, and most importantly, the charming Elisa stood outside waving at us. I don't know why, but their waving is so funny to me. Olia gasped in surprise when she saw the owl girl.
Я же говорила!
Да, знаю, я тебе всегда верил.
Кто они?
Her fearful voice was also... Her fearful voice also had some curiosity mixed in.
Чтобы в такую погоду дома сидеть, надо быть очень скучными детьми.
Shut your bitch ass up. I'm kidding. Don't. You can shut your bitch ass up, actually.
Давайте только не во все игры играть, а то у меня лапка болит. По чуть-чуть, и потом отдохнем.
You need to take your fucking meds. Teddy, you're fine. Elisa, you're fine. Holly, go fuck yourself. Take your meds.
Выходите скорее, играть и танцевать!
My heart started beating faster as soon as I saw Elisa, and my inner voice practically screamed, she's here, she's finally here.
Они знают, как попасть в Небыляндию.
I entertained that possibility, looking at the animal kids.
Может быть, пойдем и узнаем.
The silhouettes of my forest friends promised to free us from sadness, anger, and nightly horrors. I made sure that Oya wore warm clothes. Mom barked at Dad like wild beasts. Not that it did. Fuck. Mom barked at Dad like a wild beast from that show with Nikolai Drozdov. We sneaked past the rumbling kitchen and into the snowfall outside. Elisa ran up to me and hugged me tight, poking her cold nose into my neck.
Как же долго! Пока мы вас, домоседов, ждали, то чуть не состарились.
She pressed her body into me even harder.
Оказывается, ждать так утомительно. Фу, дайте хоть минуточку в себя прийти.
Однажды я тоже долго собиралась. А когда закончила, то и вовсе забыла куда.
Oya looked at the owl with suspicion, but she still giggled when the bird did a backflip and landed perfectly on her feet without staggering. All the other animals at Stefan Q stopped fooling around and stared at Oya in amazement.
Это же та девочка, что не хотела со мной дружить.
Меня зовут Оля. Раньше я просто тебя боялась.
Тебя испугала наша совушка?
Может быть, у нее совофобия?
А это лечится?
No, you cannot cure phobia. Actually, you can. Technically, you can cure phobias. It's just gonna. Yeah.
Главное, чтобы ребенок не боялся веселиться. Иначе с нами можно умереть от страха.
I was stunned at the realization that my lips were slowly forming a smile. Every time I met Elisa, I felt like I crossed a river, and the sound of flowing waters suppressed all of my negative thoughts.
Какие у вас красивые костюмы!
The fox girl let go of me and squatted beside Oya.
О, какая очаровашка. Антоша, почему ты прятал от нас это милое создание раньше?
I glanced at the house, worried that our parents might have seen us and were about to ruin our fun like they always do. Then hugged my sister and replied,
Давайте отойдем подальше.
Запросто. Оля, а ты знаешь, как найти в нашем лесу Деда Мороза?
My little sister's eyes widened.
Как?
Нужно идти по сладкой тропинке.
Lisa bent down and took a candy out of the snow. Oya raised her hand in amazement. She gave me an inquiring look. I nodded. My sister munched on the candy.
У нас что, в лесу завелся Дед Мороз? Почему? Ты мне не рассказывала.
Я рассказывала. Сегодня днем.
Но ведь днем я сплю.
Ага. Вот я и рассказывала, пока ты спала.
Elisa dashed away, wiggling her red tail like a torch's flame. Oya went after her without thinking. I laughed after taking another candy out of a snow pile.
Вы такие бодрые, на вас аж смотреть противно.
А ты давай не зевай! Лучше беги с нами к Деду Морозу, пока все подарки не разобрали.
Скажешь тоже. Скорее уж мне на голову свалится 3 кило конфет, чем я поверю в байки лисицы.
When the aforementioned sweets started raining down on the bear's head, I couldn't stop myself from laughing at him, ouching and bobbing his head up and down. Tasty treats glistened in the snow. Teddy sneezed and pulled a little bear in the north candy out of his ear.
Я бы вздремнул часок, а уж потом пересчитал все эти шоколадки. У меня такое подозрение, что тут не больше килограмма.
Lisa shouted at us from the other side of the forest.
Не в этой жизни! Давайте скорее! Дед Мороз уже заждался нас во дворце!
I shrugged and ran, running loosened the grip of fear I felt all this time. Something round whizzed past my temple. I decided it was a snowball, but then Oya proclaimed,
Зефир!
Не подбирай, он испачкался.
Ты что, веришь в микробов?
А ты нет?
Раньше верила.
Graceful crows of colossal pines greeted us with their rustling paws. Snow drifted upward into the endless black sky, just like last time. Snow piles lightened up like melted silver.
Как же красиво! А я думала, в лесу страшно.
Нас родители пугали лесом, снегом и совой. Ну а мы с совой играли в снежной чаще под луной.
I did my best to keep track of Oya's movement, but it was a difficult task. My sister would jump inside bushes, picking up more candy and landing back out on the trail laughing. Hootie flew over our heads, landed on a branch, and started hooting and shaking her head. Wolfie dug into the snow with his face, dragged out a pile of bubblegum and swallowed it without taking off the wrapping.
У тебя будет несварение.
The wolf got scared and spat out the gumball.
Враки, злые собаки. Нет никаких несварений.
They do.
Вся эта чушь случается только со взрослыми.
Elisa stopped in her tracks and moved the canopy of intertwined branches to the side in a pompous manner, like you would have opened the curtains in theater. Behind that obstacle lay a clearing, and there stood an ice castle, glistening with silver.
О, это все взаправду?
Защипнуть тебя.
Не надо ее щипать.
We stared at the sparkling miracle. Its towers and walls were made of snow and icy marble. I heard a calming sound of ringing little bells. There was also a smell of chocolate and burnt sugar in the air.
Милости прошу к нашему шалашу.
She didn't have to invite us twice. We entered the castle, spinning around, squinting from the blinding sparkles. Grandpa Frost sat atop a shiny throne. Puffy pom-poms swung atop the two peaks of his hat. A snow-white beard covered his kind smile. He looked just like I imagined him back in the day when I believed in Mom's fairy tales, tall, strong, and hairy, radiating frost and warmth at the same time. And his voice, low and syrupy, enveloped me like the smoke of a festive bonfire.
Антон и Ольга. Ох, и намучились же вы, ребятки, пока сюда добирались.
Что ты, дедушка? Мы быстро дошли.
My sister spoke with the castle's master like she never spoke with adults, in a lively, carefree manner, as if they were the same age.
Знаю, все знаю. Мне мои друзья докладывают. Кто был покладистым весь год, того подарок утром ждет.
Oh, we're getting close to episode
А кто
5.
ленился и грустил, пускай он дедушку простит. Лентяем и грустяем конфет не запасаем.
А я не ленилась.
И о том знаю.
He gave us a long, evaluating look. His real face was hidden under the Grandpa Frost mask. I was just standing there, unblinking, my gaze glued to the old man. I could accept children live in the forest and fantastical jumps towards the moon, but seeing Grandpa Frost in his frozen castle left me completely speechless.
Есть у меня для вас кое-что особенное.
The sack appeared in his giant hand. My nostrils got attacked by the aroma of coca, halva, and tangerines.
Спасибо, но мы уже ели конфеты.
Grandpa Frost pierced at me with his eyes.
Разве то конфеты были? Так, одно название. Вот у меня конфеты волшебные, прямиком из Небыляндии привезенные.
Из Небыляндии?
Сразу бы вам их дал. Заслужили. Но есть правила. Надобно вам 3 дедушкины загадки отгадать. Попробуйте.
I tried splitting my parched lips apart, but Oya was the first to reply.
Да!
Тогда слушайте первую. В нем живут машины и хранятся шины.
I looked around at the masked children. They stood without moving in the corners where their shadows danced on the walls. I heard a low hum, and in my confusion I thought it was the sound of their rumbling stomachs.
Гараж! этаж!
Верно. Хе-хей. Теперь вторая загадка. Подключайся, Антон. Весь день ходит, как тень, посудой гремит, на всех шипит.
My eyebrow shot up in confusion.
Мама?
Oya raised her hand.
Можно я? Можно я? Это кошка!
Верно. Хо-хо. Осталась последняя загадка, и подарки ваши. Только вот незадача, ребятушки. Запамятовал я, о чем же была эта загадка. А может, наши друзья-зверята нам подскажут?
Children in costumes surrounded us, laughing and stomping, only to start spinning in a crazed roundelay that somewhat reminded me of the dance under my window on that fateful night.
Дед Мороз сидит на троне, пряча в бороду снежок. Не томи нас слишком долго, развяжи скорей.
Мешок!
Grandpa Frost burst out laughing, satisfied.
Убедили старика. Получайте.
He scared a mountain of sweets from his scarlet sack, some of which I had never seen in commercials before. Bubblegum of all shapes and colors with tasty aromas and inserts sticking out. Lollipops the size of a fist and tangerines the size of Olia's head. And also Snickers, Mars, Bounty bars, and Kinder Surprise eggs that we haven't eaten for so long already.
Ой, спасибо!
Wilkie May. Trixie. Spicker. Okay. I wiped away the tears of joy with my sleeve when my inner voice persuaded me to get rid of all doubts. This is exactly what I wanted for my sister and myself. The true Neverland without bullying and taboos. We're finally going to be able to be happy. Grandpa Frost straightened up as he left the stone. He threw his hands in the air over the treats. Animals that stood to his sides also raised their paws. Their eyes sparkling brighter than precious gems. The wolf's mouth was wet with saliva.
Да будет пир на весь мир!
The animal kids rushed to devour candy one by one, pushing each other and growling. Their faces were smeared with something dark. Olia grabbed the closest candy and tore off the wrapper. When I saw that, I felt a pendulum swing inside me. We're tapping X to resist on this one. I gripped Olia's wrist so hard that she squeaked, either from pain or
Не
surprise.
ешь.
Cautious whispers spread through the room, ears twitched on the masks. Shadows slid from one place to another.
Что такое? Что случилось?
Ничего страшного. Просто Тоша верит в несуществующий диабет.
Расказни родителей.
Разбудите меня, когда он перестанет валять дурака.
Grandpa Frost leaned into me. He smelled of caramel and just a tiny bit of dampness.
Давайте не будем портить праздник, друзья. Сегодня каждый должен веселиться. Ешьте и пляшите!
Olia tried to pull her hand away, but I kept it in my clutches. I looked at the sweets and then at the tall man, then tried to focus on barely discernible stench coming from him. The stench of rotten decay, masked with a sugary aroma, the foul smell of a beast. I felt like I was finally able to shrug off some strong delusion. Fear, exhaustion, and coldness returned to me.
Спасибо, но мы сыты. И мы пойдем, наверное. Мама с папой переживают уже.
I dragged my sister toward the exit, but Lisa stood in our path. She had a china platter. She had a china platter in her hands. For a brief moment, I imagined maggots crawling inside it, but as soon as my eyes darted toward the offering, I saw gummy worms instead of vomit-inducing, writhing balls of living ones.
Прошу, Антон. Мы же друзья, правда? Мы даже больше, чем друзья. Вспомни, что я обещала. Никто не причинит тебе зла, пока я рядом. Ни тебе, ни Оле. Так что съешь, пожалуйста, всего одну. Съешь, а?
No.
Антон, пусти! Ну пусти! Теперь и ты все мне запрещаешь, прям как мама!
Oya convulsed hysterically, trying to free herself from my clutches.
Это неправильно. Все здесь какое-то неправильное.
Вот как? А ты не задумывался, что из неправильного тут только твое мировоззрение? Как ты думаешь, что делают те таблетки, которые ты глотаешь круглые сутки, м? Они искажают реальность, путают мысли, уводят тебя со снежной
You're
тропинки.
just saying that. I looked at Elise with suspicion, searching for a comeback, but I couldn't find one. I remember Voa's bloody mitten and Simeon's severed finger inside a small plastic bag. Oh, that was just an illusion.
Кто вы?
А на кого мы похожи?
Like nightmares that ravaged my sick mind.
С нами вас никто больше не накажет, не запрет в комнате, не бросит в одиночестве. Отныне никто не заставит вас делать то, что вам не хочется.
Откуда вы знаете, чего нам не хочется?
The old man rubbed Wolfie, who was munching loudly behind his ear.
Я знаю. Мне шепчут ветра и тени, холодные звезды и безграничные небеса. Они говорят, что дети не хотят взрослеть, превращаться в тех, кто живет запретами, угрозами, наказаниями,
His voice grew louder and louder with every word.
ожиданием старости и смерти. Дети живут мечтами. О, я отлично знаю детские мечты о счастливой и беззаботной жизни. Той, в которой есть чудеса и дикая свобода.
His voice rang like thunder. It made all the hair on my head stand on end.
Все это будет вашим, стоит только захотеть.
No.
Стоит только попросить.
And then he whispered.
Стоит только согласиться.
Согласиться.
Oya repeated after him like an echo, as if enchanted.
Да, моя дорогая. Вкусить это.
The old man pointed toward the fox girl.
Я прошу тебя, ради всех нас, ради меня, ради сестры. Зайчик, отведай хотя бы кусочек.
No.
И тогда ты все поймешь.
Yeah, fuck you. I felt like chilling winds blew through the cavities of their eyes, from the dark holes of other beasts and the towering old man's too. The owl's face twitched nervously. The wolf's maw dripped with saliva. The bear shuffled his feet, any trace of sleepiness gone from his face. And from behind us towered the one who pretended to be Grandpa Frost all this time.
Я сказал, мы уходим.
I gripped my sister's hand even tighter. Candy slipped out of her fingers and smacked against the floor. Olia started looking around, frightened.
Я сказал, мы уходим.
Elisa parroted me, and despite everything, I felt immense anger.
Ох, ну какой же ты все-таки дурачок.
I heard the flute's melody, but now it reminded me of cracking whip or even agonized convulsions of a fish that was thrown out to the ice. Music dangled about, striking at my ears. And then the castle was filled with cries of children that suddenly turned into beastly howls, intermingled with the sounds of crunching bones and ripping skin. The china platter filled to the brim with maggots smashed into tiny pieces. Elisa's fur coat ripped at the seams, letting out a cloud of foul-smelling fog. Her twisted face bared its teeth, and the stench attacked my nostrils again. The fox screamed, blood streaming down her cheeks like tears, making her fur sticky. Her bone-naked tail whipped against the walls with its vertebrae. I shielded my crying sister. Horror drilled into my stomach, rushed through my guts, and rose up to my throat. I felt the urge to tear off my glasses and lose sight. I wanted to squeeze my eyes out and go blind forever. I turned to face the owl, and my face contorted from disgust. Worms wiggled inside her masked feathers. Her rotten beak snapped like garden scissors. I staggered back and barely avoided bumping into the wolf. His face was stretching out, his bones crunched. Teeth poked out of his festering gums like shards of broken glass, and his swollen tongue kept on tirelessly licking them. At the edge of my vision, I saw the bear block our passage. Every inch of his body oozed scarlet ichor larvae clogged his teary eyes. I pulled the shocked Olia close, looking for an exit in a panic. My foot ended up in a pile of sweets, but those were no longer candy. Human remains blanketed the floor. Ribs with shreds of meat on them and torn out jaws. A tooth necklace and moss-covered pelvic bones. Tiny skulls and scalps swimming in a sea of blood. The horned monstrosity towered over me, clutching a bone flute in its long clawed fingers. A giant goat that shed his kind old man form. Completely black and maintaining hatred and malice, he scorched me with red-hot coals inside his eye cavities. His horns scraped against the ceiling. Ice cracked and thawed, dripping down, forming muddy pools of water, bearing metal walls that were hidden underneath it. I realized that we were doomed, trapped inside this cramped womb of a dungeon, surrounded by howling beasts. All I could do was hug my sister even tighter and watch how the circle around us shrank, how ugly paws reached out to us from behind the veil of bloody fog.
Постой, хозяин, я разорву их на части. Я вырву их глазные яблоки и трахну их сочащиеся раны.
The growling wolf's maw snapped like a bear trap, splattering thick white foam towards us. But he was immediately pushed away by a rotting bear carcass.
Волки, мой черед веселится. Как же я утомился слушать их сраный гундёж. Если бьем, сорву кожу с этой грёбаной козявки прямо на глазах ее братца. Я заставлю его съесть собственную сестру. Накормлю ему досыта ее потрохами. Пожалуйста, хозяин.
It felt like his face was about to tear apart, cracking like an eggshell, letting out something even more sinister, nasty, scary. Gnarly arrow claws grabbed at the grinning bear, stopping him from getting close.
Моя выблядки. Лапы прочь от девчонки.
The cackling zoo formed a furball that started rolling its guts and thawed fat. They howled, fought with each other, tore out scrapes of fur and feathers, ready to rip each other apart like a pack of hungry dogs fighting for leftovers. A sudden squeal of the flute pulled them apart as someone tugged at their leashes. The master of this pack charmed the monsters with his soul-rending music, turning them into unmoving, silent marionettes that faithfully awaited his command. The goat stopped nibbling on his shin bone flute. Its devilish melody that sounded like a chorus of children being run over by a steamroller went silent for one last time. A chunk of raw human flesh plopped beside my shaking feet.
Если будешь съеденным.
Consumed by fear, I turned toward Oya. She lay by the wayside, covered in pink snow. Just like Sleeping Beauty in that cartoon. Ah, shit. She probably lost consciousness from this soul-rending spectacle. I wanted to wail, go mad, to die quickly and painlessly, right there and now. But alas, I couldn't. I was still inside this torture chamber, choosing between a gruesome end inside the monster's stomachs and cannibalism. Woolen meat grinders kept on staring at me with their greedy, infinitely hungry eyes, ready to gnaw at my bones before eventually eating them, if I dared refuse their master's offer. But if I was to agree, I'm sure I would lose my free will just like them. I'll turn into a perpetually hungry monster that dances to the tune of bloodthirsty madmen. And I'll surely lead Oya and all those who I hold dear to their deaths. My lips trembled, a feeling of nausea turned my stomach inside out, but somehow I found the strength to scream.
Никогда и ни за что! Я человек!
Those words could be later used as my epitaph, but I knew that my remains were destined to never be found. My surroundings went dead silent.
Ешьте их, пейте их, рвите на части.
The horned shadow consumed us.
Сладкое мясо.
Elisa rushed to the goat and stood between us, ridiculously tiny compared to the giant monster. Her tail dragged after her, leaving behind a scarlet trail. Fleas jumped around her back and the bones sticking out of it.
Подожди. Не спеши так. Не стоит. Зайчик нам еще пригодится. Зайчик нас покормит. Вкусненько. Для медведя и лисы. Зайчик кушать принеси.
Flames inside his eye socket stopped trembling. Still dolls bared their teeth in anger.
Разве это зайчик? Разорвать и сожрать! Самозванец! Кожаный мешок с требухой! Заткнитесь, пустомели! Разве вы не чуете? Разве вы не помните? Когда он чуть не укусил луну на снежной поляне.
The cannibals went silent, swallowing saliva in disappointment. Elisa, in the meantime, took a sharp turn and returned to the form of a cute child with a fox mask on that I met for the first time one January morning. She glided toward me, dissolving the horrors around us with the smell of tangerines, firecrackers, and magic. Her soft paws touched my cheeks, removed the sticky strand of hair from my forehead. Lisa embraced me and whispered in a sweet voice.
Тоша, ты хочешь спастись?
I stayed silent, gritting my teeth. I was afraid to look away, afraid that this fleeting illusion could get shattered.
Мой милый, скажи, ты хочешь спасти свою сестру?
I feel like Elisa isn't entirely down for the Forest Master's plan, but she doesn't have a choice. Tears sprayed from my eyes as I wept.
Да!
I continued to sniffle and shake, grabbing at the hem of the fox girl's long coat.
Скажи громче, чтобы все слышали.
Delirious from sorrow, I screamed, my face awash with tears.
Да!
My mouth was immediately filled with the metallic aftertaste of blood. The fox girl's black fingers kept pushing a chunk of human flesh deeper down my throat. I fell to my knees, coughing up blood, unable to vomit it out. Rotting carcasses of animals surrounded me once again.
Какое посмешище! Позволь, хозяин, я откушу от девчонки самую малость.
Boiling anger swallowed up my mind. Something foreign and primitive burst forth, pounced from inside of me.
Только попробуй, и я вырву твой поганый язык и засуну глубоко в клаку, ты безмозглая курица!
The ominous owl jumped away in surprise, accompanied by the fox's cackling. A voice went out, and then I bent in half. Vomit poured out of my mouth, along with part of the treat that I wasn't able to regurgitate.
Ты права, зайчик.
His finger poked me. It felt like a knife. His finger poked me. It felt like a knife was lodged handle deep in my solar plexus.
Твой черед угощать нас. Добудь к следующей ночи мясо, а иначе... Иначе!
Lisa silently stepped into the shadows, and the goat put his foul-smelling maw right into my face and roared.
Иначе мы съедим всю твою семью.
He knocked his foot against the floor, and I ran for my life, forgetting about everything else. I heard them scream at my back, "We'll eat you up alive." Shards of ice fell on my shoulders, dead rodents froze inside them. I managed to break free to the place where pines moved their branches and showered me with snow, like cooks sprinkling salt on porridge. The wind tore at my hair. I turned around and froze over. The groves were disappearing right in front of me, dissolving in layers, becoming dim and then transparent before a gust of wind finally swept away the phantom of black walls. Only then I realized I let go of my sister a long time ago, and she was left behind in the monster's den. There was only a giant snow pile left in the place of the castle. The girl's wrist poked out of it, like a cross would poke out of a burial mound. Terrified, I rushed over the snow pile and started digging. Olia's pale face, along with one of her shoulders, appeared from under the white mess. Her bluish lips trembled. She's alive.
Я сейчас!
I continued digging and praying for her to hang on. At some point, I was able to see her stomach.
Холодно.
Her voice was faint.
Ничего. Отнесу тебя домой, согрею, шоколадом напою. Ты только не засыпай, слышишь? Ты только...
My fingers came across something sticky and hot. I cleared out more snow. It turned red and mushy.
Что это? Что это там?
I gulped.
Почему ты не отвечаешь?
How could I tell her? Olia's body didn't exist below the stomach. Rings of guts fell out from the wound. Olia tilted her head and stared at the horrifying scraps. then let out a deafening scream. What? I thought episode 5 came out. What? Hold on. What? I thought, hold on, wait a second. I was entirely sure. Japanese DLC manga. It was a fucking teaser release. God damn it! Ah! Okay, well. Shit. Well, I guess I'll have to revisit this whenever episode 5 comes out. This teaser came out in May, so... I could have sworn episode 5 came out. Ah, well. Well, I guess I guess Bios should just get fucked regardless, I guess. Fucking bastards. I could have sworn episode 5 came out. Well, I guess I'll just end it here, I guess.